Good afternoon, everybody. From the giant plains of Cheetah Plains, 550 hectares here in the southern northern Sabi Sands, and it is an extremely and because the first game drive from Cheetah Plains is. Can you hear me, Jean?
No. Yes.
Jean, horrible hash of all of this. It's not actually his fault. Can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Right. So I think you get the gist. We're on Cheetah Plains, 550 hectares of magnificent Sabi sands. And the reason we've chosen this particular area to start, of course, is because this is the area from which Cheetah Plains gets its name. A plain, a gabbro plain with different underlying geology to just about all the rest of our traversing area. To the far west, Arethusa, 600 hectares. To the far north and west is Djuma. That is 1,200 hectares of granite-based area. And this particular wonder before us, which is so exciting, is gabbro-based, which produces different soils, and so it makes these wonderfully gorgeous clearings there. You can see some wildebeest off over there. And to the right-hand side of your picture, in fact over the top of my shoulder, where there are some guinea fowl going ballistic for some reason, not sure why. That's actually Mala Mala, everybody. You're looking into Mala Mala, and I actually spotted some elephants just over there. They're in Mala Mala, going to have a drink there at what seems to be some kind of a dam. No, we don't know what's going on here. We've never been here before, so it's all rather exciting. So, you're on a live safari, in case you've come across this website by mistake and there's this weirdo shouting at you from a clearing miles away from anything you've ever seen before. Welcome to it. You're on a live safari, like I say. My name is James Henry. On camera is Jean Hoppy the Foot Gerding. He's also very excited to be over here with you. On the other side of the reserve, on Djuma, is Jamie Patterson, being filmed by Brian Joubert, and they will hopefully very soon be showing you some little cubs, some little leopard cubs. I'm just going to plug in because as soon as they have been found, we will show you. And in the final control, Geraldine Kent, and she's being ably assisted by Kirsten McLennan-Smith this afternoon. So we're going to drive gently down through here and just explore the rest of Cheetah Plains for the course of this 3-hour game drive that you're on with us. Please send us through any questions you have. You are welcome to ask us anything you like about Africa, South Africa. We're in the Greater Kruger National Park, so you can ask us about Kruger. We're in the little section of the Kruger National Park called the Sabi Sands, 60,000 hectares, which is roughly 180,000 acres, and then we're on this particular piece of it called Cheetah Plains, 550 hectares multiplied by 2.4, and you get to roughly 1,200 acres. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to explore and see what we can find while we're here. You're welcome to it, and please talk to us about it as we go. Hashtag Safari Live, questions at wildearth.tv if you're on the email. Otherwise, the YouTube chat, I can never say that right, YouTube chat stream works very well. Cat in Tampa, you say you're so excited you don't know where to look. Well, we don't know where to look either. Let's go and explore, everyone. Oh, first we need to start the car. Hello, Maurice. You're hoping to see cheetahs? Yes, me too. Wild dogs? Yes, me too. Ostriches? Yes, exactly. Beautiful ostrich territory we have over here. And the Anderson male? No. Unfortunately, the Anderson male, Maurice, is way to the west. He's in actually the west of Arethusa into Elephant Plains. So not so much here. Dominant male leopards here, of course, could include Mvula, Tingana more and more latterly, and then also Quarantine and Konuma, the two offspring of, we think, Mvula and Karula, have been spending a lot of time around here, so we're hopefully going to see them a little bit more. The other leopard to look out for is Inkanyeni. She has got a 4-4 spot pattern, 4-4 on either side. We could see Tandi here as well in the eastern reaches, or western reaches, sorry, of Cheetah Plains. She's 3-3. We know her because she's been mating recently with Tingana. So those are the two female leopards we might see here, and Kanyeni's got 2 cubs. She is unfortunately at the moment on Torchwood with a kill, so we're not going to see her today. But the possibility exists all the time. Unsurprisingly, in the clearing here, there are a whole lot of wildebeest. And Karen, you say you're very excited to be here, and your first request is that we go straight to 3 in a row pan, which is a sort of famous pan because you think you've seen a cheetah there. Unfortunately, our radio communications are not fantastic at this stage with the final control, so I think that's what you said. I'm going to not acquiesce to your request just yet, Karen, because I want to go to the very far east of the reserve, onto the Kruger National Park boundary. If you can believe it, that's where we're going to be looking just now. There are a whole lot of wildebeest here. And like I was saying, unsurprising that they're here. Wildebeest prefer clearings. You know that we normally see them on quarantine when we're back on Djuma. And so let's ease our way around here, have a look at them, and just appreciate the magnificence of this open area. Now, interestingly, Raisa, you say you're so excited your hands are shaking because finally we have some new scenery. Well, yes, I have to agree with that slightly. Interestingly, as we got here, Connor, who is our mobile tech support this afternoon, said, "Why is this clear?" And Gendre said to him, "Well, there's a lot more sodium in the soil." I told Gendre then that he was talking absolute nonsense and that it was far more likely that it was the underlying geology of gabbro. But I'm looking around at the vegetation here and starting to feel that horrible creeping feeling when you've spoken an untruth. Now, the reason for that is normally a gabbro plain. I'm sure there is some gabbro here, but a gabbro plain is normally dominated by knobthorn trees and a red grass, sort of Themida triandra, which is South Africa's sort of premier grazing grass. This is not the case here. This is dominated by trees you would normally associate with a sodic area. So there are some guarri trees around the place, short guarri trees like that big thicket over there, Gendre. There, yeah, that's it. There's a guarri tree in there. There's some papia or jacket plum trees. And on the side, or the far side there, we can see some silver cluster leaves, which quite interestingly are normally found on the edges of sodic areas into the seep line. So I think, although I cast aspersions on Gendre's ecological knowledge and will continue to do so for the course of the duration of our relationship, I think he does have a point. I think there is probably some gabbro under here, but there's definitely a lot of sodium in the soil, and that's why all the grass is so very short. So Genevieve in New York, you were asking about the soils. That's the basic case. So in the Sabi Sands, let's drive while we talk about this. I can't sit in one place. It's so exciting to go and see what else we have to see around here. Genevieve, soils around the Sabi Sands generally underlain by two kinds of rock. Granite, which produces the standard issue broadleaf Combretum woodland that we're so used to driving on an Arethusa and Djuma. Then gabbro, which would normally produce a kind of savanna of knobthorn trees, dominated by knobthorn trees, no marula trees, and far more in the way of long grass, long Themida grass. Now, this particular area here seems to me to be a sodic area, not so much a gabbro underlain area, and that is because it's obviously white. You can see the soil is very pale, and that's indicator of sodium. And likewise, the grass is very short, and that is also an indicator of sodium. Can be quite toxic to the plants sometimes. Very good grazing, but not so good for the plants always. And these scrubby sort of these trees, this is another indicator of a sodic area here. This looks like, no, that's a standard issue Acacia gerardia, but we will find some sweet thorn trees, or Acacia nilotica. Sorry, scented thorn trees, Acacia nilotica, they will also be around these areas. Then, Gendre, look, our first birds on Cheetah Plains, not cheetah birds, a fairly standard issue arrangement of lilac-breasted rollers. And they are sitting, I think, also on a red thorn tree. Very pretty birds. What an absolute joy this is to be here. Okay, let's carry on. Right, we're on the southern cut line here of Cheetah Plains. Basically, we're going to take you to the far end, as far as we can go. And I think the signal is probably still fine. And just to let Jerry know, I can hear her pretty much, about sort of 3 out of 5. And so we can't talk to her, unfortunately, but that's okay. And let's go across here now. I'm just getting an update from her while I talk now. You can see the vegetation's changed immediately. We're back into the broadleaved Cumbrian woodland, so that's normal. And we're going right onto the boundary now. And just to keep you posted, Jamie is attempting at the moment to get into the sighting that Brent Leo Smith had this morning of Karula and her cubs. Now, Brent went in there with Sam recently. They did re-find Karula, and so she's going to sit there and see if the cubs don't pop out. So we will keep you posted as that unfolds. Now, what I need to do quite desperately is check the map before we drive into the Kruger National Park and find ourselves arrested. Okay, so we're going to do that almost immediately. So here is the boundary. Here is the boundary of the Kruger National Park. This is so exciting. And you can even see where the fence used to go. So this is it, everybody. Across there is the Kruger National Park. Now, if you look down there, Jean-André, you can see sort of the remains of a gatehouse, I think. Perhaps it was a gatehouse, but you can certainly see a fence that used to run down here. Came down, I think, in 1994. So that's or 92, somewhere around there, somewhere after the new dispensation began, which is indeed very exciting. Now, Bethany, of course, we do take, you're obviously quite aware of the maps. It takes a little while to get to Cheetah Plains. We do have to drive through an area that we don't traverse either north or south of. You want to know if we can film on the way? Absolutely we can. Obviously, we just can't drive off-road in those particular areas. And that termite mound over there, I'll show you a little personal story. A little while back, a friend of mine and I did a very naughty thing. We walked from the boundary, the northern boundary of Londolozi, and we walked actually this very cut line all the way into the Kruger National Park, and we had our morning tea on that termite mound over there, and then we walked back. If you tell anyone that, I'll deny it stringently, but that's what we did. Anyway, let's head north up the Kruger boundary and see what we can find that way. That morning tea we had consisted of tea and crunchies. Delicious, sort of what you'd call in the UK flapjacks. Sort of muesli bar type things. And Lucy, you're in Indiana. You want to know what the first thing I want to eat on Cheetah Plains is? Well, whatever, I tell you what, I'm going to eat whatever Jean-André won't spit out. That's definitely what we're going to eat. So we'll probably find some white berry bush and eat some of that. Let me just keep consulting the map, because we do not want to end up halfway to Skukuza by mistake and be arrested for trespassing. We're okay at the moment, fear not. Let's go to Buffalo Dam, I think. And then, Karen, once we've done that, we'll go to 3 in a row pan. This is so exciting. Not a huge number of animals here. And a big shout out, of course, to Graham Wallington and Peter Braat, who are my erstwhile employers. So I'm a bit sad I shared that story of my illegal foray into the Kruger National Park. Welcome, Peter and Graham. I promise not to do that now. And very glad that everything is going well. The signal is bouncing perfectly off the Cheetah Plains Tower, which we might actually go and show you a bit later. And back to the final control on Juma. Very exciting indeed. This is obviously a very straight and narrow road, which is what a cut line is. So, Maurice, you're on Twitter, and, well, you're probably not on it so much as using it. I'm just looking at some elephant tracks here. Maurice, you want to know if there are any sodic sites or salt licks So there are no sodic licks that have been put out by people as far as I know, but that whole big clearing that we were on there is one very large sodic site, as unfortunately deeply irksome to my ego as it is, as Jean-Ray pointed out to us when we got there earlier today. So what that means is that the soil is very rich in sodium, and animals like warthogs during a drought, oh, there's evidence, Jean-Ray, evidence of the fence. Animals like warthogs, Maurice, will, oops, I'm about to break my microphone. Animals like warthogs and elephants, to a certain extent, will certainly eat the soil in times of hardship. Now here is a piece of wire, and that's not normally something interesting to find on a game drive, but to say that it is a little piece of history. So it's a pretty ordinary piece of wire really, but it has been here for many years, and it's a piece of the fence that used to line along here when the Sabi Sands was not part of the Greater Kruger National Park. Now it is basically gone. The Kruger National Park initially was 1.8 million hectares, and then it opened up to the private reserves on the western fringes, of which the Sabi Sands is one, and this fence came down round about 1992 if I'm not mistaken. And then it became 2.2 million hectares, and that of course was then increased around about the year 2000 when the fence between Mozambique and the Greater Limpopo, or the Limpopo National Park in Mozambique, and Gonera Zoo into the northern Zimbabwe were opened to form the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park, say that after a heavy night, and that is now, we are now part of 3.5 million hectares of land, of wildlife land. So this area has become more and more and more vast as the years have gone by, and we hope that it will continue to do so. Now I'm just seeing the tower at Nkoro at the moment, and that is a little bit disturbing because I hope I haven't gone north over the boundary. I don't think I have. No, we seem to be okay. Don't worry, Peter and Brian, at least Graham, we'll be okay. Yes, we're okay. Hello, X-Ranger. You want to know if there's a bet on the first person to get lost in this new area? I don't think we need to have any bets there. I think that given my record, we all know precisely who is going to get lost first. Ooh. John, I know you don't like these, but at least when I point them at you, they sit down. There is a sulfur orange tip, as far as I know. I think that's what it is. There, beautiful butterfly. Stunning. And just listen, everybody, listen to the silence for a little while. You can hear a crested barbet going. And I read a very interesting thing about a bird that is able to call like that. A bird that is able to make an extended call like that, seemingly like a didgeridoo player, which seems to never run out of air because they can breathe in through their noses and breathe out of their mouths at the same time. Astonishing ability. I can't do the same thing. But a crested barbet, which is sitting somewhere over there, I can't actually see it, I'm afraid. What they have, all birds have, is something called a syrinx. They don't have a larynx like ours, and where our larynx is just below over here, theirs is just above the lungs. It's actually below the kind of windpipe. And it means that they can basically breathe into one lung and exhale out of the other at the same time. So they produce this continual sound, which I think is quite interesting. Don't you, Jean-Ray? Are you astonished and sore amazed? Flabbergasted. Flabbergasted, I knew you would be. And just a quick shout out as well to the clouds today. They could not be more magnificent if they tried. Just a wonderful array of different colors of grey interspersed with that deep autumnal blue in the sky. It's just so stunning. All right, while I continue my exploration of Cheetah Plains, I think we should hand you across to the great Queen of Djuma and perhaps George and Charlotte. They are being investigated by Jamie. I will see you just now.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Sunset Safari. I'm speaking very, very softly for a very good reason. Most of you, I think, will know by now that Queen Karula, our wonderful leopardess, and many people's absolute favorite leopard character, brought her cubs out for the first time this morning to show Brent and to bring across to, as it turns out, to bring across to a kill that she has hiding under this tree. Now, I'm speaking very softly and I'm giving her plenty of space because most likely the cubs are around here somewhere. She's looking for a nice, comfortable place to lie down in the shade. She does have a belly full of impala. I have Brent and Sam to thank for this particular sighting. They spotted her not far at all from the road. She's actually visible from the road. And you can smell, as you drive along, you can smell the dead impala that she's got settled underneath the tree. So we've inched our way in. We're sitting very quietly. Brent did see the cubs about. So what we're doing is we're sitting very, very quietly and just waiting for them to see if they will come out to say hello to us or if they're going to stay hidden and sleeping. I suspect they're probably sleeping in the shade somewhere. Obviously, I'm not going to go looking for them, so we'll stick for now with our time with Karula. We do only have a limited time with her because we know that she has cubs. We're going to stick around with her for probably the next 15 minutes or so, and then we're going to move off and leave her to her own devices. But it's so wonderful. This is the first time that we know of that she's brought her cubs to a kill site. Very well done, you clever girl. And she knows exactly what she's doing. Now, apparently, you've all started there's been a Twitter poll started for what's the most exciting sighting, whether it is our new traverse on Cheetah Plains or whether it is the prospect of Karula's cubs. And it seems as though the cubs are winning out this afternoon. Of course, we have to just wait patiently and hope that they decide to come out and play. If they don't, well, there'll be plenty more opportunities for us to see them again. But it is amazing how the exciting sightings have all seemed to have coincided on exactly the same drive, or at least the same day for us. I was out on tracking team this morning when I heard Brent call in that or at least I heard that the cubs had been found, and I saw all of your screenshots. Those dangling feet. Isn't it amazing how comfortable a leopard can look in the most uncomfortable looking tree? And to be honest, if you didn't already know that she was there, she would be so easy to miss. Her cubs are 2 months and 1 week old at the moment. So they are ready to start weaning, and in fact, leopard cubs are recorded as having been weaned as early as 6 weeks old, only a month and a half. Most likely, however, it's around 2 to 3 months, even 3 to 4 months before they are completely weaned off their mother's milk. I love 3 dogs. You were just saying you're very glad that, as wonderful as it is to see her, you're glad that it's going to be a limited time spent with her. And yes, absolutely. And that is the way that sightings of these cubs will be handled in the future. There will be time limits, and obviously there will only be 1 vehicle allowed at any one point in time. So we will just wait patiently, hello gorgeous, for opportunities to see her. Now already we have unusual animals on Cheetah Plains. Let's jump back on with James and have a look at a black-backed jackal.
Running away there is a jackal, everybody, and that is look at its white tip. It's a side-striped jackal. Wonderful to see it in the middle of the day, and it's no coincidence that we're here in a clearing and the jackal is there. much less confiding than its cousin, the black-backed jackal, and much more common in these southern reaches of the Greater Kruger National Park. But isn't that lovely? Looks like a little wolf there. He's hiding behind the tree. Oh, he's great. That's brilliant. He was standing still, of course, until Gendre had a consumptive attack and started coughing viciously. And the jackal, not wanting to become diseased, ran away. It's just, we're going to drive very slowly forward. He's obviously not very used to vehicles, that jackal, and that is not unusual. As Gendre was saying earlier, he said he bets if we saw a leopard from the Kruger, it would be a lot more wild, and that's completely true, and quite possibly the origins of Gijima, that leopard that Brent found the other day and spent so much time habituating, I reckon he came from the Kruger. And this particular region of the Kruger has got no roads in it, so it's not unusual to find animals that have never seen people before. Isn't that exciting? There we go, side-striped jackal. Right, I'm hoping the sound of my lapel mic now, Jerry, will be slightly better. Okay, so we turned south. Basically, we almost went on to Nkuru by mistake, but we avoided it. I checked the map in time, and we're now heading sort of back south, winding our way back towards those enormous clearings along a road called Kestrel Road. In fact, let's go along this road here. Don't know which road it is, don't care. There's a wildebeest in that clearing there. Another clearing, can you believe it? It's like being in Serengeti out here. Utterly marvelous. There, let's go into this clearing and have a look there. And as we are driving along, I am noticing more and more that the characteristics of a sodic area as opposed to a gabbro plain. Oof, and now we have got a new radio channel going. That is the Eastern radio channel. I'm very nervous of making myself known there. We'll just leave that to rest for a little while, I think. There's no reason for me to introduce myself live, create consternation. Anyway, right, we have a small thicket, Gendre. Can you believe it? A whole thicket full of trees through here. Nothing particularly unusual this far. And love three dogs. Just before we go back to the leopard, you want to know that jackal is the same size as a wild dog. It's slightly shorter and slightly lighter. So a jackal probably weighs in at around, if I'm not mistaken, sort of 12 to 15 kilograms, and a wild dog up to 20 kilograms. So that is 20 kilograms is about 44 pounds. Right, let's go back across to Karula. We shall explore here and let you know if we find anything.
I mentioned that leopards always look so incredibly comfortable when they lie down. Karula's not managed it terribly well. She hasn't quite found the position that she wants to be in. She's just moving backwards and forwards constantly on a very leafy tree. Or maybe that's the spot. Not quite sure. Oh, goodness gracious. Just a nose sticking out. Now, her cubs are most likely not very far away from her at all. They're probably hiding in the long grass or even in one of the neighboring trees. And yes, Laura, the cubs are now big enough for them to climb trees. They have been seen in one sighting, well, not sighting, but when somebody came across them, right at the tip-top of a marula tree, which is one of the reasons why I keep sort of casting about and checking the neighboring trees. It's amazing. She knows exactly where they are and is quite comfortable with wherever they are. Unfortunately, she doesn't seem to be able to find much in the way of comfort. Hey, big girl. Thank you for bringing your cubs back to us. We really appreciate it. Now, fast asleep in the shade of the tree, hidden completely in the leaves, So yes, Laura, they can climb trees. They've probably been climbing trees from about 3 or 4 weeks old. And one of the reasons why we have avoided looking for them has been in order to give them an opportunity to be able to climb and to perfect that particular skill. Now, just as I was coming in here to have a look for Karula, the kudu started barking away like crazy. They'd obviously spotted her. And I think that might have been one of the reasons that the cubs were sent scurrying into the undergrowth. It's either that or they're fast asleep somewhere. Now, her kill is on the ground, and hopefully it's a big male adult impala, and an impressive kill for a leopard like Karula. And we've just seen Shadow do that as well. There we go. You can see it tucked away behind the trees there. I don't want to get too close or to reposition too much. And Lenny, you are right in a sense that it is dangerous for Karula to have her cubs by a kill. But unfortunately, this is when life is probably at its most dangerous for these little cubs. She has to bring them to a kill, even if the hyenas can smell the kill, and given how good their sense of smell is, she has to do it. They have to feed off the kill. She cannot lactate. Unlike hyenas, lions and leopards do not lactate for an extended period of time. They have to get their offspring eating meat as quickly as possible. So already, as I said, her baby's on their way to becoming weaned. So the only way that she can look after them is to bring them across to a kill, let them feed off it. And what you'll probably find, Karula being Karula, and having the experience that she does have, you'll probably find that she's going to move them before it gets dark tonight and before the hyenas start to become active. That would be my guess as to what she's planning on doing. We're going to spend another 2 minutes with her, and if there's no cubs coming out to play, then there's no cubs coming out to play. And we will wait until next time she decides to bring them to us. She's found the most uncomfortable looking spot in the entire world in which to sleep. It's a really good idea that's come through from Alan. Alan wants to know if I've had a chance to measure the cub tracks so that we can almost create a growth chart. And I think that's absolutely brilliant. I think that's exactly, Alan, what we should go and do next. We can measure them to the millimeter and track their growth. Now, the difficulty will be determining one from the other, because if it is a male, if we have one male cub or 2 male cubs versus 1 male and 1 female, their paws are going to grow at incredibly different speeds. Oh, Karula, that's just not very comfortable, is it? It just looks so unpleasant up there. And it seems as though today, no sign of the cubs coming out to play. That's okay. There'll be plenty of other opportunities in the future. I'm happy for now to just see her and to know that her cubs are hidden and safe and well fed. And Wendy, most likely, as I said, it's most likely that they are sleeping. Might also have been a little bit frightened by the barks of the kudu, but you were wondering if she'll call them out to feed or if they will come of their own accord. And the answer is they will come, most likely at this age, they will come and investigate of their own accord. And instinct kicks in and they will start to feed. Oh, Karula, just not comfortable. I thought when she first went up there that maybe the cubs were hiding there. This is the leafiest branch I have ever seen a leopard lie on. It's almost made it looks as though it's almost made a sort of a a platform for her rather than just a log, rather than just a branch to lie on. And she does appear to have one very itchy head. Okay, girl, and everybody else, I think it's time for us to leave Karula. Let her carry on her day unimpeded. Hopefully she moves her cubs away. I'm sure she will. With all of her experience, I'm sure that she's going to move the cubs away from the carcass tonight when the hyenas are out and about. Hopefully, she actually hoists it into the marula tree that she's currently climbed it up in. That would give it and keep it safe from any attentions of the hyena. 1 second. I just want to see if she's going to reposition or if she's actually going to go down to fetch cubs. Because she might also go and fetch them depending on how she's feeling. And Marianne, who is watching in Texas as we watch Karula slink up and down this branch, you were wondering if the cubs are capable of tree climbing, why then did Karula not put the kill up in a tree so that they can feed in safety? And the answer is because it's too heavy at the moment. As I said, it's a full-grown adult impala. From what briefly I saw of it, it doesn't look as though she's eaten most of it. She probably hasn't pulled the stomach contents out. So I think at the moment, Marianne, it is just because it is too heavy. Hello, gorgeous. Where are your babies hiding? Oh. Flop. Okay. Okay. Well, I think that might be that for now. She looks as though she's just found herself a more comfortable spot. And Monique, just on the subject of the antelope that she couldn't drag up into the tree because it's a little bit heavy. Monique, you were wondering if perhaps Shadow, since Brent had her yesterday feeding on an adult impala kill, and Karula might not have aimed specifically for larger kills because they have cubs to feed. Whoa. Look at that. Look how happy she looks. Totally content. Monique, I don't think so. I think it's more to do with what we've been discussing about the time of rutting and the fact that the male impala at the moment are so distracted that they make for easy targets. So I think that that is the most likely reason. Their hormones are flying, they're all fighting each other, they're constantly distracted, and it's been windy and dark most nights, and you'll probably find that both of those things have worked in the favor of the Queen of Juma and her daughter Shadow. Hello, girl. I'm going to let her move around, see what she decides to do, and then we're going to... Oh. She's now digging. I'm a little bit uncertain as to why. I think she's just going to urinate. All right, we're going to leave her. I'm going to let her move around to her kill in peace, and while I do that, let's head back over to James.
We're on Hornbill's Nest Road, everybody, and Karen, we're on our way to 3 in a row pan. You can see how the vegetation has changed completely back to what we're more used to, the broad-leaved red bush willow woodland or Cumbritum woodland, and that is much more common, of course, all over Juma and Arathusa. The other thing that I want you to see, if you can find, is perhaps some new trees that we don't know. I've already seen one. I didn't pick a piece because we were driving very quickly to get to the clearings before the start. But I think you'll find even just a simple little shift down slightly south towards the Sand River, just a bit further down the large slope, will give us a different suite of species. We'll get the odd change in the grass and in the trees. Beautifully kept roads here at Cheetah Plains. Magnificent. No bumps at all. Hey, Gendre, your back's feeling much better already, isn't it? Yeah, Gendre is not shy of telling me when I drive like an idiot. Can't really blame him for that. Oh, Jeffrey in Texas, you want to know how many documented cheetah are actually on Cheetah Plains? Oh, roughly 36, Jeffrey. There are at least 36 of them running around here, great herds of cheetah. Jeffrey, no, I'm obviously being facetious and sarcastic, and I shouldn't be. Jeffrey, because cheetah are not territorial, it's difficult to say. So we know that in Kanyeni the leopard hangs out here. We know that in the western side Tandi hangs out. We know that in the northern reaches that Mvula comes down here. Quarantine and Gunuma, they spend time here too because they tend to be a lot more sedentary. A cheetah's distribution is almost exclusively distributed by two things. One, prey availability and habitat. And well, then they kind of go together. So like those clearings are excellent cheetah country. I mean, that is really perfect cheetah country. And then also the presence of other large predators. Lions, they don't like lions. The Birmingham boys have been spending a lot of time here. And so, you know, I don't know how many cheetah there are around this area at the moment. And likewise, they also won't be around hyena. So that's basically it, Jeffrey. The two male cheetah that have been seen around this area quite often, and Brent saw them, I think, almost not quite a year ago, probably about 6 months ago, on the Buffelshoek cut line. They stick to the Torchwood side, and then I think they come down here. So the most likely cheetah that we'd see here would be that little coalition of two, and I think that they will probably check from clearing to clearing, depending on where the lions are and where the hyenas are. And Debbie, you were asking about the lions and what kind of lions we can expect to see here. Well, Styx pride is the most likely sort of pride that we'd see around here, and then of course they've got some little cubs which will start moving with the pride in the next 6 weeks or so, so that's always a possibility. And then the Birmingham boys have been spending extended periods on this particular area. Let's quickly go across to Jamie. She's got something very exciting.
I was in the process of pulling out. She's just started calling them. Here's a contact call back. We're going to sit in absolute silence. Such a soft, subtle contact. This is incredible. Here we go. This is incredible. There's another one calling. There's another one, Brian. That's coming that side. Hello. Hello, gorgeous. It's okay. Can hear her comforting them. Oh, this is incredible. Tax for Jamie. Look at. Hi. You're so cute. Tax Brent. I can't pull out at the moment. The Buntwans have just come out right next to the vehicle. I can't pull out. I will as soon as I can. actually shaking. This is hands down one of the most extraordinary wildlife experiences I have ever had in my life. Number 2 is a little bit more shy, but there you go, they can climb the trees. They can climb trees. It's okay, little one. Little one. So much tinier than the other. We're gonna sit completely still. I can't turn the vehicle on. I don't want to scare them. Look at that agility. Isn't that incredible? Hi, guys. Well done, Karula. Running to the kill. Do you hear that contact call? Oh, little ones, welcome to the world. Your mommy's a very clever girl. They sound like little frogs. They sound exactly like tree frogs. Hi. Hello, gorgeous. It's okay. You keep movements nice and slow. Tex, if you can, just stand by. This is incredible. Tex? Tex, I'm going to be pulling out of here. I haven't been able to turn on. I'm going to send you back over to James on Cheetah Plains. I'm sure he's dying to update you as to what is going on. And we will be leaving this incredible sighting. I'm grinning from ear to ear. Brian's grinning from ear to ear. We're going to be leaving. We will catch up with you later.
So we're now on something called Owl's Nest Road, everyone, and we did go past 3 in a row pan, but what I'm going to do quickly, simply because we can, and Karen wanted to see it, we haven't come far from there, and I expected that you were going to be with Jamie for a little while. So let's go back there, Karen, and we'll show you 3 in a row pan, the famous or infamous, depending on your point of view. It's not too far from here. And a lot of the game viewing on Cheetah Plains does centralize on this pan, and especially during the drought time that we had, there was a huge amount going on there. The Birmingham boys killed a number of things. There seemed to be leopards all over the pan all the time, and we were very jealous, of course, every time they were called in on the radio. Now, we are jealous no longer, because we too can enjoy the fruits of 3 in a row pan, which is just around the next corner here. It is obviously called 3 in a row pan, Jean-Ray, because there are how many pans? 5. No, not 5, 3. That is incorrect, Jean-Ray. Bad luck. Your appreciation of arithmetic is poorer than your appreciation of the ecology of the area, which I have to admit, like I say, was slightly more competent than I expected. Otherwise, we haven't seen a great deal of game since we got here, but it was very nice to see that jackal, of course. Oh, and there's an Amur falcon. Now let's just try and get into a position where you might be able to see it. sorry, Genre. There you go. That's an Amur falcon, everybody, about to go back to Siberia. It's very excited, that's why it's flying around so much. Very difficult to film. Tammy, you want to know if we're allowed to off-road here? Yes, absolutely, we're allowed to off-road here in exactly the same way that we're allowed to off-road everywhere else. So, very high-profile game sightings that we can off-road, but we're not just going to drive off-road for any old reason, any old thing. Right, here are the pans. Karen, I hope you're excited. 3 pans in a row. Hence, 3 in a row pan. 1. Anything in this pan of particular interest? I think they're... I'm just listening to the radio. I think there are a couple of terrapins in here. 1 or 2, just sort of you can see their heads sticking up. Sorry, there is a leopard actually, but not where we can see it. What is that? Must be a terrapin trying to catch something. It is on coral, which is just north of us. So that's quite exciting. All right, let's keep going forward. So here is pan number 2. Oh, and pan number 2 is filled with life. We've got 2 old foam nest frogs there, Gendry, those white things sitting in the tree. So those are made by the grey tree frog or foam nest frog. They have excellent protection for the eggs, and they're formed when the frogs mate. Lots of males will try and mate with each female, and the ensuing sort of conflagration causes the formation of that foam. And then there's a blacksmith plover or blacksmith lapwing now firmly behind a bush just over there. There it goes. Tink, tink, tink. Apparently its call sounds like the hammer of an anvil. Hammer and anvil. I personally don't hear that. So that's pan number 2, Karen. And pan number 3 is over here. Pan number 3 is looking a little bit tired. Pat in Nebraska, you've got a question that I'm afraid I missed. If you wouldn't mind doing it again, Geraldine. Oh, I see. And Pat, you want to know if we might put a waterhole camera here. I don't think at this stage, but Peter and Graham are watching, so if there is any chance of putting a waterhole camera at 3 in a row pan, then I imagine they will be able to tell us. That is the expired wildebeest, looks like, or no, it's a female buffalo. It's a female buffalo. And she was killed here. I remember them eating this thing a little while back. The Birmingham boys killed this young female buffalo not too long ago and left its remains messily here, eerily, on the side of the 3rd of the pans, so named 3 in a row pan. Now, Connor, the mobile tech crew for the day, tells me that the road to the tower is not far from here, and I wonder if we shouldn't just quickly show you how all of this stuff works. If I can find it with ease, then we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll do that at another time. I see a little road here. Let me just retrieve my map. an interesting question from Georgianne in Illinois. I don't think we've heard from you for a little while, Georgianne, so thank you very much for your question. And you say that it seems so quiet there, that there was a lack of bird song in those clearings, and could it be that the clearings, because the clearings are so open, that we're not hearing that much in the way of bird song? Georgianne, yes, that is well possible. Of course, birds are much more likely to be, certainly songbirds, are much more likely to be in the trees than they are running about on the ground. So yes, it could well be that that's why it's quiet. Also, you may have found that, I don't know what the weather is like on Djuma, you know it's so far away from us here, but as soon as the sun kind of goes under the clouds, you find that the birds do stop calling. I don't know why that is. So if you were in the sun around the Queen and her little ones, then you will definitely find that the birds would have been louder than they are here. But it is pretty quiet. Right, now the tower is up here somewhere. There, I can actually see it. Jean-André, can you see it? It's off to the left-hand side. Just through there. You can see it there. There's the tower, everyone. We'll take you to it. So that tower was erected 2 days ago by two highly competent men of few words and much facial hair, an impressive group. And we are going to be producing I think it's Geraldine's producing a 52-part mini-series on the erection of that tower, and it's, you know, all the behind-the-scenes shows that went on there. We've shot about 7,000 hours of footage, which will be condensed down to a 52-part series to go out on the internet. I'm talking absolute rubbish. We will put out probably a little Safari Live story about putting that tower up and the tremendous risks and personal sacrifices that people have made to bring you visuals from Cheetah Plains. Now, I know you can't see him at the moment, but the figure of Connor Teague's mobile tech support is on the vehicle at the moment, and he's more camera shy. Well, he's more camera shy than Al Capone, I think, and he tells me that the road to this tower is nearby here. I'm not sure that I believe him. Connor, the deal is that if we don't find this road in the next 2 minutes, you are going to be on camera. You are going to make your debut to the world. That's the deal, Connor. And see the tower. Sing the road to it, though. Oh, here we go. Dash. Oh well, we'll give him a reprieve for now. Connor, of course, I don't know why he's so shy of the camera. He's a strapping young fellow. Watch out there. He's you know, he's cut like a bit like Bruce Lee. Tall, blonde hair. I mean, if I looked like him, I would desperately want to be on camera instead of being short and balding like I am. Can you imagine how much I'd love the camera then? Right, we're going to head towards the tower now. Now we have interesting update here from Connor. Of course, does not have communications with the final control. With the final control, Connor, they would like you to do something, reboot the Pi. Do you know what that means? He's nodding relatively vigorously for him. He says he knows how to reboot the Pi. I have no idea what a pie is other than something delicious to eat. Watch out there with the aerial. Well done, Jean-André. Fast as a rattlesnake you were there. Have you rebooted the Pi? Oh, he has to get off the car, he says. He's now trying to communicate with me. I tell you what, we'll stop when we get to the tower, and Connor can do what he has to do. I'm not sure why he needs to reboot the Pi, but he does. Right, so here we are at the tower, everyone. Right, Connor, off you get, reboot the Pi. Where do you have to do it? In the car? He won't even speak. I mean, he knows we're live and he's unable to even bring himself to say a word. Anyway, it's in the back of the car. Right, so there is the tower. It is, Connor, how high is it? About 35 meters? No, 100, no, I've got no idea. 70 meters, 120 meters? 21 meters. That's got to be higher than 21 meters. Is that all it is? Connor, how high is the tower?
It's 21 meters.
It's 21 meters, yep. Well, thank you, Jerry. Well done. It's 21 meters tall. You may have heard Connor's sultry voice there. And on it is a repeater. So how this works, everyone, is that the camera sends a signal to the aerial on the back of the car. That in turn sends a signal to the antenna on the top of this tower of 21 meters. And there you can probably see the little satellite dish at the top. That then bounces a signal straight to the Voyatella tower, which is just above final control. That then goes into the final control and out through a satellite link. And I think it goes from there to London, if I'm not mistaken, and from there to the rest of the world. And that's how you are seeing us. Isn't that amazing? Absolutely astonishing out here in the Greater Kruger National Park. A high definition signal coming to you live. That's a very nice camera work there, Jean. Well done. That's 2 almost compliments I've paid you in just one day. And that thing there, that is a box full of impossibly complicated things. And above it, just to answer Leal's question in Washington, above it is a panel of solar panels. And that is to power the batteries and the repeaters and different bits of incomprehensible things that live in that newly built aluminium box. That aluminium box was built by those very clever people with the large facial hair and little words. They have since departed, having done an exceptional job here. Connor, get on the car. Right, Connor is remounted and we're off. Apparently the Raspberry Pi has been successfully rebooted. On we go. Now, of course, Connor works with Alex. Alex is a terrifying Russian. And Alex, of course, has been with WildEarth for a long time, started as an editor, and I think sort of like most delinquents, discovered that he was actually quite clever and eventually became the technical guru. Now, we had another question, but I'm afraid I failed to hear because the comms are a little bit rough out here. So, Jerry, if you won't mind going with that again, please. Now, Tom and Renee, you're in Illinois. You very cleverly noticed that I am not wearing the green hat that I had the other day, which was bought for me very kindly by Alex the Russian. And the reason for that is that I found it slightly large for my small head. You see, I've got a very tiny brain, and my head has become increasingly small since I've become bald. And so I went and I bought another hat when I was in town yesterday getting fuel. And this hat is the same size as Jamie's hat. Jamie has a small head because her brain is compacted. She's got an enormous brain, but it's very compact. And that's why I have another hat. I feel it fits my head very nicely. Don't you, Gendre? Gendre? You must try me. Right, let us continue our exploration. We're going to head back onto Owl's Nest Road and back sort of towards the eastern side of Cheetah Plains, back to the northern edge of those clearings that we had, and hope maybe that leopard that they've got on in Coral doesn't come down here. That would be wonderful. Imagine a leopard on our first drive here. Now, I'm just going to quickly consult my map. There, we're on Pipeline Road, not Owl's Nest Road. Sorry about that. We will be on Owl's Nest Road shortly. Now, Monique, you always ask very intelligent questions. You say you've noticed that the grass is very short here. Is that normal? Has there been more or less rain here than there was at Djuma? And are we likely to see any different antelope as a result of the fact that it looks like the grass is different? So, Monique, first of all, on that clearing, yes, the grass is shorter. It's not short because of rain, it's short because of the contents of the soil. It's that sodic kind of soil, which is very rich in sodium, and like I sort of mentioned, it is quite toxic to some of the plants, and so you do get the short grass clearings. It also gets extensively grazed by the animals, and that's why it's kept short. But if you were to go into these areas, we're now into this broadleaf woodland, and you'll find that there is very short grass, possibly slightly shorter than it is at Djuma at the moment. I think you'll find that they have had slightly less rain than Djuma, not too much less, but it is incredible how firstly how isolated the rain has been this year, and also how exponentially the rainfall decreases the further east you go. So the further east from the mountains you go, the less the rain is. Now, in terms of antelope that you might see here that you wouldn't see on Djuma, well, the most obvious one is a sable. They do see sable here every so often, not very often. By every so often, I mean probably once a year or so. So that's a possibility coming out of the Kruger onto these clearings. But that bull that we did see at Djuma that went across the dam wall that one night, what an amazing thing that was. That bull came onto Cheetah Plains and I think in Coral, and spent a bit of time around here, and then he went off. But otherwise, no. Unlikely that we will see any other kinds of antelope here that we wouldn't see at Djuma. Remember, we're not actually that far away from Djuma. I mean, it feels like we've kind of come to a different universe because we're making such a big deal out of it. And it is a big deal because it's wonderful to be here. But the vegetation is the same to a large extent, and so the suite of grass and tree species are the same to a large extent, and so the animals' suites will be pretty much the same as we see there. But the chances, of course, of seeing other different kinds of leopards or other leopards and things would be wonderful. Right, Jamie is back on Djuma. Let's go and get an update from her, and I will continue my exploration.
Wow, that was the most incredible sighting that I have had in a very, very long time. What an amazing experience. I actually almost want to just go and stop and park off somewhere, take in the view, and just take in how lucky we were to have her comfortable enough with us to call her cubs out and for them to come all the way up to us. It is just the most incredible feeling, and I know that you are all feeling that wherever you are in the world. It's just one of those moments that you can barely take in, and that perhaps there aren't even words to describe it. Just to let you know, obviously I have left immediately. You heard Taxon coming in. I couldn't get hold of him on the Game Drive channel. He couldn't hear me saying just to stand by. I'd already told him I was pulling out when she started contact calling. Let's just have a look at the Drakensberg Mountains and this incredible weather we're experiencing. So yes, I was saying that I was going to pull out. Taxon couldn't hear me, and as soon as he came in, the cubs came back out and I left the sighting. So all is well there. We just slightly overlapped, but I left immediately. And we've been able to enjoy this incredible experience. Now, it might be that we don't see those cubs again for days, but it has all been worth it, or weeks even, depending on where she decides to stash them away next. But this has just been one of the most memorable moments that I've had while I've been on Safari Live, if not the most memorable moment. I've heard so many stories about Karula being the and it was so wonderful to see it in practice. And those little contact calls that sounded exactly like foam nest frog croaks. rah. That's exactly what they sounded like. And Brad, you were wondering, as we go off in search of other things, although I'm now so distracted, I don't know quite what I'm doing. But Brad, you were wondering, does Karula have different contact calls for each cub? And the answer is no. It's a standard contact call for both of them. But she will recognize each individual's response. That was just absolutely phenomenal. Okay, sorry, I'm overusing adjectives here. It's hard not to in a situation like this. It's just one of those moments that you just have to stop and take in. It takes me back to my first ever leopard cub sighting, which was with a female that I knew almost as well as some of you have known Karula. I'd followed her for many years. Her name was Rulani. Ironically enough, that also means peace in one of the different African languages, just like Karula does. And Rulani was like Karula. She used to come and lie in the shade of the vehicle on a hot day. She was comfortable around us. She used to walk right past us. And I saw her first two cubs when they were about that age. She showed them to me at about that age. They were wandering out, contact calling to her. And I spent many, many hours with those cubs, watching them climb marula trees, learning their way about. There were just two females. And they're still alive and well. They took over parts of her territory, and it was just an amazing process to watch that whole thing happen. And that's quite a unique opportunity, to watch a leopard's life from birth, follow a leopard's life from birth right up into adulthood, and then, of course, breeding and producing cubs of their own. And it's one of the things that I think makes Safari Live unique, is that unless you are working in an area like this as a guide or in whatever other capacity, unless you are working here, it's something that you don't quite get to experience as a guest, because you come out and you're with the animals for a few days and then you move on. Whereas with our Safari Live viewers, they've been viewing these animals from the very beginning, and Karula's entire life has been followed through. Right. Another unusual animal sighting on Cheetah Plains. Let's go back over to James.
I can't see them. I can't see them. We've got some ground hornbills everywhere. There we go. Oh, look, 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 look. There on the top of the tree. Just surveying the land. And a highly endangered bird, this, everybody. The ground hornbill. Not on the ground at the moment, but look at the light being filtered through these stunning grey clouds. Just at this distance. Isn't that stunning? Gee whiz, and just below it, the red-billed buffalo weavers industriously maintaining their homes just before the winter. Gosh, that is wonderful. So there seems to be a flock of 3 of them. There's one more quite a long way in front there. Can you see it, Jandri? If you zoom into the left there on the sort of scraggly tree on your left, you'll see it there. That's it. It's in that tree. And then the other one, I think, went off slightly towards the east. There we go. That's stunning. They're both cleaning their beaks fastidiously. It's a good word, that, don't you think, Chandra? Oh, look at that. Now, just appreciate, everybody, this bird probably weighs in the region of 12 kilograms. No, maybe a bit lighter, say 8 kilograms. Now, for it to be jumping and flying like that, the deftness, the neurological pathways and sort of automated nervous system response for that bird to leap up to where it is now from where it was sitting, knowing that it was facing the wind so that it would be able to open its wings, make itself slightly lighter, hop, flap twice, and then land exactly where it is now, I just find amazing. And I think a lot of us, we sit and we watch birds every so often, and we see them hopping around in trees without appreciating that the coordination required for it is absolutely incredible. So 2 unusual sightings that we've had here. Let's continue along the road. I'm just going to check which road we're going to continue along. This is, as far as I can work out, Kestrel Road. The Kruger Park cut line is just over to the east there. Yes, I do. Here we go. Let me show you. So, Bill, you're in Tennessee and you want to know, do we have a map like Scott used to show you? Absolutely we do. Here it is. Let me just straighten it out a bit. Okay, so that's where we are. A fairly sort of trapezium. It's a trapezium, basically, is Cheetah Plains. That's us, the blue bit there. To the right-hand side of the blue bit is the Kruger National Park. North of it, come on, that's Nkoro there. North of Nkoro, if I'm not mistaken, is Torchwood. So Djuma is here. That's where Djuma is, over there. Arathusa there, and then Mala Mala is that bit there. And we started our drive. Basically over there. Okay. There you go, Bill, in Tennessee. That's basically how it works. So I'm just following this little blue dot at the moment, making sure that we don't end up somehow at the Nkoro camp, where they will either arrest us or give us cake and tea. The former, which would be very unpleasant, the latter, wonderful. Connor just perked up at the mention of cake. Hello, Gary. Gary, lovely questions about that endangered bird, the ground hornbill. What's its wingspan and what does it eat? Gary, it eats largely things like tortoises. It's the only bird that is able to peck open tortoises. It's got that chisel-like beak. It can crack open the carapace of a tortoise, and so that's largely what they eat. Otherwise, they'll eat rodents, they'll eat snakes, they'll eat basically anything meaty that they can get their beaks over. This is called buffalo pan now, everyone. And while you observe buffalo pan with Jean-André there, I'm quickly going to just confirm exactly the wingspan of a ground hornbill, because I don't know and I want to know, and I also want to know exactly what it weighs. Right. So I'm just looking here on my very clever app here, and they're only 4 kilograms, so that in pounds is about 10 pounds. Chandra, don't laugh at me, I'll punch you. They're about 3'6" tall, 110 centimeters. I won't really punch Chandra, I promise everybody, mainly because I'm scared of him. And I'm just quickly checking if we've got a wingspan here. At the moment, we don't have a wingspan. No, I'm afraid no wingspan on this. So the wingspan, I would say, is roughly the same height. I'd say it's probably a bit more. We'd say 1.5 times the height of the bird. So if the bird is 3'6", it's probably about 4.5 feet wide. It is quite a wingspan. It's quite an impressive. You agree, do you? The eco-genius filming me at the moment agrees that it's probably about 4.5. Okay, I was absolutely correct. Phew. They've just Googled it in the final control. 1.2 to 1.8 meters, so between 4 and 6 feet. Thank you very much for that, Geraldine. Sorry, between 5 and 6 feet, so I was a little bit under, actually. No, it wasn't. No, between 4 and 6 feet. And Paul, an interesting one from you as to where they nest. Now, it's a wonderful question that I don't know that I'm supposed to be where we are now. What's going on here, Jean-André? There seems to be a secret a secret missile site here, launching pad. Look at that. You mean not a secret missile site? Okay. So some solar water panels there, I think. I'm just loading the map here. Yes, it would seem that this site is used to pump a buffalo pan. Okay, so we're going to reverse slightly. Sorry about that, everyone. Paul, one of the reasons that the ground hornbill is endangered is because of nesting sites. So you asked, does it nest on the ground? The answer is no, it doesn't. Would it nest in a tree like that one we saw it in? No, it wouldn't. It would nest in an enormous tree cavity. So it would need a tree sort of the size of this weeping boerbean here. That's the big tree in front of us. It would need a piece of that tree to die so that the fungus could get into the heartwood and eat away there, and then it would go into a cavity there. And one of the reasons we reckon that they are becoming endangered, or they are endangered, is the lack of nesting sites. And there's a lack of nesting sites because of obviously habitat destruction everywhere. They think that in areas where there are lots of elephants, where elephants will push over big trees like that, that's creating a problem for ground hornbills. So they have to have really enormous cavities in big trees. So if your big trees are starting to disappear, so the nesting sites for hornbills will be reduced. I think I'm copying this, so just to let Jerry know, we're only copying about 2 out of 5, Jerry. But a question from James Richard about what ecological niche the ground hornbill fills. Well, James, you know, it's not difficult to answer so much as to say that it's so they don't eat, to say that they fit into a trophic niche or feeding niche different from the other raptors, in that they can eat tortoises, which many of the other animals aren't able to do, so they're able to exploit that. They have a more Catholic diet than many of the other raptors, and by that I mean they will eat just about any piece of meat that they can. They're pretty good at catching things like snakes and possibly even ground-dwelling rodents, where with that big beak, where you'll find that many raptors wouldn't be able to do that. So that's the kind of idea of the trophic niche that they fill. Let's head across to Jamie and see what she's doing on Juma. We'll continue our exploration.
I was just chatting a little bit about this particular block and how tracking leopards here can be quite scary. And this gentleman over here is one of the reasons why. A buffalo enjoying his Saturday afternoon. There we go, I am correct, it is Saturday. Wow, I think that's the first time I've got the day right in a long time. His Saturday afternoon spa date. Oh, if you heard that bird shooting across, that was a Cape turtle dove. A particularly noisy response. I just want to see if, never mind. I just want to see if maybe it's a male pursuing a female. They usually make that sound when they are looking for a little bit of attention and love, just like the giraffe with James were doing this morning. Back to our Duggar boy. You can really see where the name Duggar or Mud Boy comes from. An old gentleman like this. It's all right, boy. Getting comfortable. Spend as much time as possible during their day just resting in the mud, happily ruminating away. You can see the baldish patches around his eye and the jaw constantly going. And during the day, unless the buffalo bull is feeding, you will almost always see him chewing away like this, bringing up balls of cud and then re-chewing them again for the round 2 of the digestive process. And I've noticed that compared to giraffe and antelope, buffalo bulls seem to chew for a really long time before they swallow the cud ball. I don't know if that's because they form bigger balls in their stomach or what the reason is, But it's just one of those small observations that probably if I hadn't been working in this particular job, I might never have realized. Because you find yourself, when you're looking at an animal through the camera, or at least in my case, through a monitor, you find yourself observing all manner of different details on the animal. There, he swallowed that one, and up comes the next one. And you can sort of see what I mean about how much longer they chew than, for example, a ruminating giraffe. I see the bit of a shimmer to his eye, a little bit of haziness there, and I don't know if that's the light reflecting up from the muddy water or if he is starting to build up a cataract there. I think it could be a cataract. It's not the gentleman with the really blind right eye, because I saw him at Treehouse Dam earlier. It's interesting how, or at least we've got 2 buffalo bulls just in this area that are starting to develop cataracts. And I don't know whether it's come through injury, and especially through knocking heads with each other. Oh, there goes the next mouthful, and here comes the next one back up, bulge. If you look carefully when he does that, you can even see the bulge in his neck as that bolus comes back up. But yes, you can just imagine the impact force of 2 buffaloes going head to head at full strength. And I'm not really talking about the sparring sessions that they go through. I'm talking about a really serious battle for access to a female. And you can only imagine how an animal as bulky as this one, how much momentum and force they would be capable of exerting on each other. And of course, that boss at the base of the horns, that thick set of bones, makes for a very, very solid impact surface. And it does, that boss does distribute the force across the skull and stops it from sort of centering around the brain cavity. Although in buffalo bulls, that's quite a small area, maybe not surprising either. There goes the next one, watch carefully. And there it is. Here goes the bulge of the next mouthful. He is absolutely liberally coated in sticky mud. And he has to enjoy the last few moments of these particular pans. I would guess that they will be dry if this weather continues to heat up. And it has been slowly heating up. I think we're just in the tail end of our cold front. These muddy pans will be out of use for the next few months until we come to summer once again and the rainy season. When the rains first occurred, this muddy pan stretched all the way across the road. James Richard, you've suggested that this particular buffalo looks like a crab crusher to you. That might seem like a very, very random statement to those of you who haven't been maybe watching the last few shows. Suffice to say that Pinchy Whiner, the crab that was living in the hole around a mud wallow, James discovered that his hole had been destroyed and basically mangled, and he suspected largely due to the actions of animals like buffalo having a good wallow around them. But hopefully Pinchy Whiner's managed to find a nice secure place. It must happen with freshwater crabs in this area all the time that a buffalo comes along. I don't know, James. I think innocent until proven guilty, although circumstantial evidence, he's in a pan, Pinchy Whiner was in a pan. Maybe we can draw a correlation there between the two. He disagrees. Was that affirmation or denial? I think the tail flick means no. He denies staunchly. He is, in fact, James, terribly offended by your accusation. Can't you tell by his tremendously expressive face? No, not so much. Oh, well, we'll have to go and question the other buffalo, see if we can get some. Oh, he agrees. 2 for yes. 2 for yes. He thinks we need to go further afield and go and question the other buffalo and see if they have any answers to the mystery of who was responsible for the crab's home destruction. And I think we'll need to gather a bit more evidence before we start pointing too many fingers about. What do you think, James? That's what I think. But I'm not entirely sure you can listen to a word I say this afternoon. My brain is still scrambled. And while I head off to find more buffalo to question about our particular case of criminal destruction, Zoe would like to know on the subject of the buffalo's horns. And Zoe, if you can hold that thought for one moment. If I can hold that thought for one moment. No, it's hyena. I'm busy following up on the male leopard tracks that I found this morning with Sam while we went out on a combination of a map lesson and tracking team, just to help Sam navigate the reserves, get to know the roads a little bit better. As you know, when I first started working here, the number of times I spent getting lost were substantial. Now let's stop here, because this is, once I get off this rocky bit, because this is a good answer to Zoe's question, because it applies not just to the buffalo, but also to our antelope species. And that is, Zoe wanted to know about the makeup of a buffalo's horns, and has said, is it right that a buffalo's horns are made up of the same material as hair and fingernails? It's an interesting one, Zoe. Almost, but not quite. So a buffalo's horns, just as the impala's horn, just the same as the impala's horns, is made up of solid bone. Not ivory, nothing else, just solid bone all the way to the tip. But you are correct in that the sheath that colors it, it's a thin layer. In buffalo, it's probably about 1/4 of an inch. In these impala, it's even thinner. That keratin layer is, yes, it's the same. It's keratin. It's the same as your fingernails and your hair, but in a more solid, hollow tube that basically sits on top of the bone and shelters it. Now, what you're thinking of, Zoe, is rhino. So rhino do not have solid bone horns. They have pure keratin horns. It grows in a completely different way. And it's one of the reasons why it is very frustrating, the current situation that we have to deal with, because keratin has absolutely no medicinal value, and you might as well bite your nails or chew on your hair rather than purchasing any medicinal products that are made of rhino horn. We won't go stray too far into detail on that, but you do get the idea of where my feelings lie on the subject. So Zoe, on antelope and bovids, so the buffalo and the antelope, bone all the way to the top. And that's what separates, or that's what makes antelope different from deer. Because it's bone, they can't shed their horns once every season and then regrow them. In deer, their antlers are made from solidified blood vessels. But in impala and other antelope, the growing process of the horn takes a lot longer. Now, the male impala that Karula has killed is roughly the size... Sorry, Brian, what is that drongo up there, just up above the impala? Bright yellow. There we go. Oh, gone.
It was a butterfly.
It was a butterfly. It had caught a bright yellow butterfly. I thought it was some strange yellow-headed black bird that I'd never seen before in my entire life. That butterfly was so enormous. Right, sorry, back to the impala that Karula killed. A little bit smaller than this gentleman, but not far off. And as we said, probably due to the fact that the males at the moment are so incredibly distracted from everything else that's going on around them. Now, these 5 males that we have here have been pushed away by another dominant male, and you'll find hanging out not too far from a breeding herd of impala, hoping to hone their fighting skills, although unfortunately for these 3 young gentlemen, it will be another year or 2 before they are large enough to compete, but to hone their fighting skills at the point that they are able to compete for access to the females. And I always feel a little bit sorry for impalas or male impalas of around this age. The hormones are there, the instinct is there, and the opportunities are not, unless they happen to be very sneaky. around the edges of a breeding herd that is being guarded by another male. I have seen it happen once or twice, where a young male has managed to mate with a female. They are sexually mature, they are capable of mating. It's just more of the fact that they are not big enough to compete. And it's interesting watching their reaction, immediately moving away from the slightly larger ram, not quite ready to give him the opportunity to have a go at them. And it's been interesting watching the impala flinch, or the males at least, flinch every time another male walks past. They're very nervous. Yep, see? Nope, nope, nope. Try and stay out of his way. Let's not cause any trouble here. Just gonna keep moving out of your way, mister. Please don't get too cross with me, mister. Oops, sorry, mister. I'm in your space. As we are presented with this perfect view to give an answer to Shellbell's question, Shellbell was saying she's noticed a lot of animals have black markings or black outlines to markings of the various animals, and was wondering what sort of purposes they serve. Now, the impala are interesting because the black stripes fall very much near very tender areas where the skin is slightly thinner and where ticks would normally like to settle. So one of the theories behind the markings on the backside of the impala is that or dark colors absorb more heat. They don't bounce back the light rays. So they absorb more heat, they get hotter, and that in turn attracts ticks to settle on and around those markings. Outside of the more sensitive areas and within reach of, have a good scratch around that eye. That's not just scratching, by the way, that's also scent marking with a preorbital gland. Yes, those black markings might serve that purpose. That's the predominant theory on an impala. Personally, I also think they play an enormous role in visual communication. Black is a color that stands out very effectively in the bush, and it's a color that is used for emphasis, which is why the impala have black ears, black tails, and interestingly enough, those black dots on the back of the leg. Now, the ears and the tail in all animals are very important in visual communication. So even with the lions, for example, with their highlights of black on the back of their ears and on the tip of their tails, animals do they can't talk. Their language is through movement. And how better to emphasize your movement but by highlighting the most important parts. It's like emphasizing a word. Oh, you might be big enough for me to bully. No, maybe not. Maybe just have some lunch. That is why animals generally have black enhancing markings. It's amazing to watch how nervous these young animals are. Just to go back to finish off that question, the black marks on the back of the impala's legs, those are glands. They actually hide a scent gland that releases a pheromone scent when the animals are scared, and probably you'll find it's also quite swollen during this breeding season that the impala are going into. One of the theories behind those glands is that whilst impala, as herd animals, are being chased or hunted, they release a pheromone or a scent that the other impala can follow so that they don't become separated and therefore place themselves more at risk. And of course, all the while flashing through the sighting is a fork-tailed drongo. You might have noticed one ducking and diving, a little blackbird, picking up all of the insects around that are being stirred up by the feeding impala. Right, I'm off to find some other animals. I'm actually off to see if perhaps the hyenas will decide to show themselves, since I've already been so lucky with Karula. And while I do that, interestingly enough, James is somewhere called Jumapan on Cheetah Plains.
Well, Juma Dam, actually, everybody, and I mean, there's nothing particularly astounding about it, but for the fact that there is a grey heron there, which is quite nice. And this is called Juma Dam. Now, I don't know if it's related to the fact that the reserve north of here is called Juma, but they all were originally Chitra, Juma, I think Torchwood even, and Western Gari, which is now Vuyatela, or where Jamie is driving around, were all owned by the same family at one stage. And I suspect that's why this has a similar name. So the heron will be looking for frogs and for fish to eat. Hopefully tilapia they quite like, mollusks as well, so the odd snail, and perhaps even Pinchy Whiner the crab. But he of course managed to stay out of the way for many years until that buffalo sat on him. Beastly creature. They'll also eat rodents and other birds if they can get hold of them, but largely they're fish eaters. And that beak will be used not to stab, but to grab at fish. And they do it largely, apparently, by feel. The storks especially do it largely by feel. So you see him moving gently through the water like that. Now what he would do is flush a fish or a frog with his feet, and he'd feel that. Very sensitive on the feet, and then he'd sort of dive down or peck down very quickly with his beak and grab whatever he had dislodged. And so, I mean, it's really quite an amazing thing, that, because there's no visibility in the water there, so he cannot see beneath the surface. So it's entirely by the feel of his feet, and then a guess as to whatever he has disturbed, a guess as to where it moves, which I think is amazing. And a pretty unattractive call. And Monkey Man, your mind works in some ways the same as Gendre's. I hope not in all ways, Monkey Man. But you asked this question exactly as Gendre did as we drove onto Cheetah Plains this afternoon. Why is there a Djuma Dam on Cheetah Plains and Buffelshoek Dam on Djuma? Monkey Man, I don't know, is the answer to that question. I suspect that this dam was probably called Djuma Dam before Djuma was called Djuma, because Djuma was just known as Western Gowrie for a large proportion of its history. I have no idea why Buffelshoek Dam should have been called Buffelshoek. It's all rather a mystery, and it's the mysterious origins of these names will be somewhere in the annals of private property ownership and family feuds that go on in and around these highly contested pieces of land that make up the magnificence that is the Sabi Sands. Oh, look, here we go. Brilliant. He got a little tilapia, I think. You can see them all breathing there. Quite amazing. And Gerda, you want to know, while we sit here, how many different kinds of dams we have here on Cheetah Plains. As you have correctly said, we've got a buffalo dam, 1, 3 in a row pan, which is basically 3, but we'll call it 2. So we've got 2 there. Then we've got one called Cheetah Plains pan, which we went past. It's in a nice clearing. It's very pretty. And then Djuma Dam. They're all kind of in a line in the middle of the reserve. So we're sitting at about 4 new watering holes. There is one in front of the Cheetah Plains camp as well, but our signal isn't great there, and we don't really want to disturb the camp unless there is a sighting quite close by. Right, that was a nice little heron sighting at Djuma Dam. And as far as we know, Djuma is one of the sounds that a lion makes. So the 2 words in Shangaan for the roaring of a lion, Djuma and Vomba. And I think Vomba, if I'm not mistaken, is the much longer call, so the roar, the proper roar. And I think Djuma is probably the bit at the end of the call. Jom, 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 jom. So if you've ever heard a lion doing that, I'm only guessing, because so many of the animal sounds and animal names in Shangaan are onomatopoeic. So I think that's where that one comes from. Did you like that, Genre? Did you enjoy my bass rendition of a lion's call?
Quite so.
Fine, thank you very much. Thank you, Simon, for your question. Thank you for asking me a question that I have absolutely no idea how to answer. And those are actually the best kinds of questions. You want to know the etymology of the word lion and where does it come from? I don't know. I think it probably comes from an earlier word, probably the Latin Leo. I think Leo is probably actually originally Greek, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't know for sure. And I think lion is probably a derivation of the word Leo. The earliest written time that lion would have been used, I can't tell you, but safe to say that I was discussing the other day that up to 10,000 years ago, the lion was the most widely distributed mammal in the world, other than the human being. Now that means that it was all throughout Eurasia, where we know writing originated. So I suspect, and I'm a word for lion, hieroglyphics, which is the earliest known writing that we know. Yeah, I thought we might have a bit of signal break up here. Let me just find out where we are.
Just watching the clouds roll across the sky and having a look at all of the hyena tracks that are in the road. It's actually quite chilly. I was just about to put on my jacket when James disappeared off the radar on Cheetah Plains. How incredible is it that we've managed to have James up and about and busy with driving about on Cheetah Plains. This whole afternoon has just been extraordinary. Let me try not to get stuck in my jacket like I did the last time. But yes, the odd signal dip, the odd niggle is all stuff that we're working out to go. And the thing that I think I'm most excited about is an extension of what I have loved about working on Djuma and Arathusa, is the fact that we're out every day, twice a day, usually even if there's only 2 vehicles out and there's another presenter or 2 presenters going, not spare, but who are not working that particular sunrise safari or sunset safari. I just find it so wonderful that we have, because we always go out on tracking team, we go and explore. And I'm looking forward to becoming as acquainted with Cheetah Plains and that whole area as we are now with Djuma and Arathusa. I mean, on Djuma itself, we know each and every little game path. We know where all of the animals, the paths that they choose to walk down when they go disappear off into a block. And we've got so many memories. It's the one thing about working in a place for an extended period of time, that no matter where you go on the reserve, there is a memory, and a good memory, attached to every single corner. Like here, for example, on Sandy Patch, it was my first ever Nat Geo TV appearance with Brian on camera, and we'd found a herd of elephants, and I was so nervous. I was absolutely terrified. I was shaking. My voice was shaking. And we had this herd of elephants, and most of you know me and elephants. There's nothing I like better than to spend some quality, peaceful time with them. And we just couldn't get in this block, and everywhere I turned, the elephants were just that one bush behind. And they weren't stressed or anything, but I certainly was. And yet at the same time, that is such a vivid, and now that I look back on it, such a wonderful memory that I can't even begin to describe it. And then if we go just that little bit further around to Sydney's Dam, and we go and have a look there, and of course the first thing that comes to mind for me in Sydney's Dam, actually there's a few, wild dogs twice, just emerging out of nowhere and racing across, and the excitement that I still get that feeling of excitement every time I go there. And that one time, of course, with Brent on camera, where it became something, we described it as the Blair Witch Project with his filming, because you know how Brent gets with wild dogs. And he sort of just forgot that the camera was focused on the dog in front of him. He was busy watching the wild dogs on the side. The dog stood for a while in front of camera and then wandered off. And the viewers were just left with this section of road and no animal. And that's what I'm looking forward to about Cheetah Plains, is it's not just the new animal characters, although that plays an enormous part of it, but it's the memories that we there and the sightings that we will be able to share with the viewers. And I hope that some of you also feel that way. When you come on the back of these live drives, you've been watching, many of you have been watching for years and years. And I can only imagine that sometimes when you come around the corner, you just have these vivid memories and good memories attached to the different places on Djuma, which is one of the reasons why we always stop and we talk about where we are when we're in a sighting, to give you those memories attached there. As it happens this afternoon, as it very often happens, some days there's nothing, and that's okay too. You can listen to the calls of the lapwings and a pearl-spotted owlet somewhere in the distance whistling away. And moments of peace like this are very precious. That being said, before our light disappears completely, I think it is time to head off and see if those, perhaps since I'm on such a lucky streak because I've been so fortunate today, perhaps it is time to go and visit the hyena den, and hopefully they've decided to be home when I come calling this time around. They've managed to dodge me over the last few trips there. And the hyena den, just to carry on with that subject, so many memories, so many different sightings that they all begin to blur into one, but all of them magical moments spent with the hyenas. And just a quick note on that, just to explain to any new viewers who've been watching over the last few weeks and would like to know why we treated Karula's cubs the way we did today, with absolute kid gloves, very, very carefully, lots and lots of personal space waiting for her to bring them to us. Whereas when we approach the hyena den, and we've seen hyenas at an age much, much younger than Karula's cubs are now. And the reason that we do that is because somewhere to dash. Another attaches itself to different parts of the reserve, of course, is every now and again.
Now, if you look down there, everybody, Jean-Ray, if you will show the viewers down there, please. Thank you so much. We're on the southern boundary again of Cheetah Plains, the Mala boundary to the left-hand side of your screen, and just a lovely shot there of the diffused light of the setting sun. As we head into autumn, it is starting, it's a little chillsome out here. And so we're going to continue now east again. We're on the far southwestern corner of Cheetah Plains. So if we look at our little mappy here. Oh dear, there we go. There we are on the southwestern corner. And we got slightly lost over there when we went black screen, so you lost us. We in turn got lost. I shan't tell you where we went. And we're now going to continue east this way along back to sort of where towards those clearings, see if anything hasn't popped out into them, and then I'll take you past that very attractive pan called Cheetah Pan there. Cheetah Plains pan. Okay, is that all right? Anybody got any objection to that? We will then have explored pretty much the whole of Cheetah Plains, which I think is marvellous. On we go, Gendry. Given that this is a straight road, I probably won't need my map. Ah, there we go. Thank you very much, Karen, for sorting that out for us. Cheetah Plains was originally called the Juma Bush Lodge. That's right. It was called Juma Bush Lodge, and so it was part of Juma at one stage. I don't know when that changed, but it was in the relatively recent past. Yes, this road I did wander along, of course. Right, Marianne, in Texas, thank you very much. The etymology of the word lion. Etymology, Gendry, means the origins of a word. The etymology of the word... I'm just being unkind to him at the moment. He's starting to look more and more upset with me. The etymology of the word lion is from the Old French, thank you, Marianne, from lion, if I'm not mistaken, and that in turn comes from the Latin word leonis. So I wasn't quite right with Leo, but almost there. Thank you for that, Marianne. And the Latin word probably came from the Greek leon. And etymology of the Shangaan word ngala is unrelated, of course, to any of the etymology related to the Latin, Greek, or English. It is Zulu, it is Ibubesi, which I think is a wonderful name, or Ingwenyama, that's in Xhosa, or in Zulu. In Sotho, another language here, it is a Tau. Tau. All the different words for lion. Right, we're going through a dip here, everybody. If you do, yeah. Thought we were... There be the tracks of the Birmingham boys. So we got some fossilized tracks here of, well, some lions that probably passed through the area at roughly the same time that the word lion was derived from its etymological past. Not very new. They are Birmingham boys tracks, male lion tracks going that way, but they're not new.
Today, apparently, is just one of those days. I'm so happy. Finally getting to see our lovely hyena clan after what I can only describe as an extended absence, probably of about a week, maybe 10 days, but it certainly felt longer. And already they're looking, from not little I can see of those bundles of fur, looking absolutely like they've grown. Because I think this is the January twins. It's hard to tell. I haven't been able to see Mom all that clearly. And obviously, most that I can see of little ones is fluffy backs. But look how filthy Mom is looking. Somebody has spent her afternoon wallowing in the mud. Just heard some Ellies screeching. I think that's Madam. I think it is. Although she looks very small, but that is a dip. There's a sort of a dip there, a ditch that she obviously finds quite comfortable to lie in. And that's why the one hyena cub, you can't even see its head. It's lying at such an awkward angle to suckle. Now, in complete contrast to the cubs that we saw earlier, these two are far older than they are. They are somewhere in the region of, what would it be now? It's 3 months. Now that is scary. Am I right? What month are we in? April. February, March, April. That would be. That would put them at about 3 months, even over 3 months, because we didn't see them. We certainly didn't see them from birth. So they're probably close to 4 months old now. Karula's cubs, in contrast, are just a week over 2 months old. A big difference is that Karula's cubs will, as we saw, already being brought to a kill and having to be weaned in the next few weeks, whereas these little guys, especially if they are the offspring of the matriarch, as I suspect that they are, could suckle, even though they will start eating solid food at around 6 months. They could suckle for up to 1.5 years, is the longest recorded suckling period for a spotted hyena. And interestingly enough, there's a very strong correlation between the hierarchy of the female and how long she suckles her cubs for. And not just that, there's actually a very strong correlation between whether or not she takes the cubs back to the carcass, or whether she brings food here. So for low-ranking females, they will not be allowed, and they never do for some interesting reason, drag food back to a den site, but the higher-ranking females will. Now, initially, if you read some of the older textbooks and the older articles about the behavior of spotted hyena, most of them will say that they never bring food back to the den. That is absolutely not the case, because I have seen them do it on multiple occasions. And I think what probably led to that belief was maybe the females that had cubs at the time that the studies were done. Oh, bottom's in the air. That looks exceptionally comfortable. You can just see Mom's foot protruding out from under the little one's neck, the one on the left, and it's now managed to bunch itself up. Oh, we're getting a little bit big to both fit and suckle from Mom at the same time. Battling for space there. But yes, those studies probably were conducted at a time, or that research was probably conducted at a time when it was lower-ranking females raising cubs. But the reason that spotted hyenas are capable of doing, or one of the reasons why spotted hyenas are capable of suckling their young for as long as they do. The reason they can do that, it's one of the explanations behind why hyenas have evolved for females to have such high levels of testosterone and androgen in their systems, and why they are bigger than the males. One of the theories is the big mother theory, which essentially is that the bigger the mother, the better they have in terms of access to food. And I'm talking about size of the mother when compared to others of her species, not compared. Look at the little paw going there, pushing against Mom to stimulate milk production. Oh, those sharp little teeth. Yes, Mischief. Hello. Now, Teresa, just on the subject of suckling, you were wondering how long hyena cubs, and they are cubs because hyenas are more closely related to dogs than they are to cats. So rather than pups, they are cubs. Look at it pushing there, just like cats or kittens and puppies do. How long they will stay with their mothers. And the answer is it depends very much, again, on the rank, and it also depends on the sex of the individual. If it is a female, it could wind up staying with the mother for the rest of its life, right up until the mother's death. If it is a male, we've seen with Bella, and it's interesting in this case because Bella is the previous offspring of this hyena that you're looking at now. Bella is a male. Mom bred very quickly straight afterwards, and Bella's been on his own since... When did he start? When was he first on his own? Probably around December. So at about 1 year old is sort of the earliest that the sub-adults will start to roam quite far enough afield that we would say that that they are separated from their mothers. We've seen the sub-adults like June, for example, and the February twins. We've seen them roaming at a relatively early age as well. Around 10 months to a year old, they will start to move further and further afield, and by about a year old, depending on the sex, they will often be leaving their mothers, and the mothers will then have a new set of cubs. But in certain years, it can be up to 2 years that the mothers will have had cubs, and that will be the distance from their one birth to the next set of offspring. So with spotted hyenas, it varies tremendously, and that applies across the board with every kind of aspect of information about spotted hyenas. It is so variable from area to area and place to place. And we speak about hyenas being great hunters, and they are great hunters. And yet, I'm sure many of you are saying, but we've never really seen, well, we certainly haven't seen as many attempted hyena hunts as we have lion hunts or leopard hunts in this particular area. My answer to that is, first of all, we're not as active at night when most hyena hunts occur, but also the fact that they don't need to. We have got such a high concentration of lions in this particular part of Africa that they can go across and find carcasses that they can scavenge. So they don't need to, and they don't need to come into conflict as often with lions. You don't get those. We've occasionally had it, maybe, for example, with the Salalas, and occasionally with the Nkuhumas, where they've been pushed by hyenas. But for the most part, they don't need to risk anything happening to them. Particularly the Birmingham boys are known for going from buffalo carcass to buffalo carcass without finishing the first one. And the hyenas come behind and just move in and clean up the scraps. That's that's just pure observation from my side, working in this tiny little patch of Africa. Hyenas in Botswana, hyenas in the desert in Namibia will be a completely different kettle of fish. Hyenas in Kenya and Tanzania will be completely different from those. It's a totally different ecosystem. And yet, unlike lions and leopards, they show such a tremendous variability in the way that they are, in the way that they function, and the way that their hierarchy works. And Christy, you are absolutely right, looking at it from this perspective. And I think it's more than just the fact that the one cub is lying underneath the other. Christy's noticed that one cub looks younger than the other, and she says even though that's not possible. And you are absolutely correct. Hyenas, of course, do not suckle any cubs that are not theirs. So they do not allosuckle. So both of these are hers. They are twins. What we could be seeing is the female cub on the left and a male cub on the right. That would be the most likely explanation for the size difference. Now, if I'm not if I'm not mistaken, just from observation, I have picked up that it seems as though one cub is male and one cub is female of the January twins. And that very often is the case with hyena twins. Now, hyena cubs can be very aggressive with each other, although recent research suggests that the statistics might not be as high as previously suggested. But there's very strong research that when two females are born, there's so much competition between them that one very often kills the other and you get one cub on its own. It doesn't always apply in practice, and research now is suggesting that some of it is actually caused by what's known as colloquially termed aunticide, where other females from the clan kill the cubs, particularly if the other mother is not around, and that cub gets a little bit too forceful, for example, with a cousin. They could run the risk of being killed by another hyena. When we first noticed the birth of the January twins, the one cub, if I cast my mind back, was absolutely covered in what was either a skin disease or scars all across its back. And it could have been this little male, if indeed this is a little male, that was being bullied and injured by his twin sister. Hyena females are, as I said, much larger. They have high levels of testosterone. They also have false male genitalia, which often, particularly in sexually immature cubs, so cubs that are not yet ready to reproduce, it can make telling the sex of the cub very, very difficult. Oh, hello. Who have we got coming in here? instant submissiveness. Oh, I wouldn't stand on them if I were you. Just quiet for a moment, watching behavior of what looks like a male that has just come in. No, it's Corky. It's Corky, and here comes Madam. Instant show of dominance. So these are the December twins. Ah, here comes Madam's twins. Here we go. They haven't grown as much as I thought. I thought I was going completely crazy. Here's the matriarch of this clan. Instant submissiveness from the other cubs. And here comes one of her cubs to say hello. Look at Madam's belly. She looks as if she swallowed a soccer ball. Oh, comes in, causes chaos, and off she goes. And now her two cubs have come out to play. I really did think I was going crazy. I was amazed at how fast the January cubs had grown. I feel a lot better now. That makes more sense. That we've got the December twins here, not the January twins. Although I still think with what my explanation still applies, because I have noticed with the December twins as well, that one seems to be a female and one a male. Ooh. All framed by a grass species that I have now looked up and researched that is known as a feather-top chloris. Feather-top chloris grass. Chloris family, a very picture. Oh, hello. Good evening. Have you decided to come and say hello after all this time? Peekaboo. Peekaboo. What are you doing, you little monsters? I can't see you now. Where have you gone? Well, I try to keep an eye on what those cubs are up to and to make sure that they're not sharpening their teeth on my... Oh, there goes one. That's one of them. Oh, there's number two. Are we not quite as exciting as you thought we were? This is one of the other things that I love about spotted hyenas, is that natural curiosity that they have. People in vehicles provide entertainment more than anything else. And the older they get, the further afield they are likely to go exploring, and the more likely they are to come and harass visitors to the den. And I mean, that hyena giving off the perfect body language of a harassed hyena. Oh, taking me a while to reacquaint myself with who we've got here. There you go, submissive gesture even to a cub of that size. Cocking the leg and displaying the genitals is instant submissiveness. And they do that to show that they recognize the rank, because even though these little cubs are tiny, they are still high-ranking in this hyena clan. They've inherited their mother's status, and their mother is the head of the clan, the queen of the clan. Breathing there. Again, submissive responses. I cannot believe what Madam looks like. Look at how dirty she is compared to all of the cubs. She's absolutely filthy. Now, Madam is one of the biggest hyenas I have ever seen. Just not in terms of height, in terms of bulk. She's just massive. She's very dark in color. She's filthy. Oh. Hello. Where have you been hiding? Oh, this looks like November. Oh, sorry, we're watching here. All having a very impressive interaction with each other. Corky's now up, coming to join the fray and find out what's going on. Having disturbed her cubs. Now Madam sniffing her babies. Dashing about, and all the while, November snuck up and has climbed underneath my bonnet. So November is here and accounted for, just distracted me. He's somewhere sort of there behind the bonnet. Let's head over to James quickly, find out how his explorations of Cheetah Plains are going.
It is a tawny, well done. Tawny eagle, everybody, flying over, identified by the latest ecological genius of the Sabi Sands, Jean Recherding. Very nice. Beautiful. I think that's the same one we were looking at. We were just looking at him in the clearings over Mala Mala, to where some guests were sitting, enjoying a drink stop, a sundowner stop. And then off over that way, we've got some wildebeest, unsurprisingly, in the clearings here. And the sky coming in over the east there is something to behold. Look at that incredible cloud there. And while there's no doubt that a bright blue sky is truly magnificent, especially out here, seeing those huge grey clouds rolling in here is something special, just at the end of this cold front. So a herd of wildebeest grazing. They will spend the night here, I think, looking out for the Birmingham boys, possibly coming out of Mala Mala to have a meal here on these clearings, or looking out for those two male cheetah coming from the north. Right, we're going to hand you back to Jamie in the den. I've got one more thing to show you on Cheetah Plains, and that will be the Cheetah Plains pan, and then we're going to make our way back towards Djuma. So this will be the it from these clearings for the last little while. Ooh, there's a jackal crossing the road, everybody. Just hold on 1 second. It may be the same one. Two of them, apparently. They're black-backed. There's a black-backed jackal. Everybody, these are black-backed jackal. So we've seen two species of jackal today. Can you even see them, Jandre? Sorry, I'm just going to get into a position where we can see them. How's that? There's a black-backed jackal. And there's a pair of them, and that's what you'd expect. You'd expect a pair of them to be in a clearing like this. Two species of jackal in one drive, that's awesome. Now, I think you'll find that this jackal will be slightly more confiding than the other one. They're generally a bit more relaxed than the side-striped. So let's see if we can sneak a little bit closer. Keep an eye on him. There's the other one. I can see the other one still in the clearing, basically over my head now. Andre, my screen's gone black. Are we still live? There they go. There goes the other little one there, running across. What are they doing? They're foraging. Isn't that a beautiful little dog? So, I know the inevitable question is, can they interbreed with wild dogs? And the answer is absolutely not, they can't. But they're much more closely related to domestic dogs, for example, than are wild dogs. Please excuse my sound there, everybody. I forgot to undo my jacket. Now you'll be able to hear me. Oh, these are just so special. They really are an indication of a healthy sodic area. So cool. and they'll be foraging for basically any form of meat that they can find. They do scavenge. They are, you see them there, Gendry? Well done. So he'll be looking for any kind of thing to scavenge. They will eat termites if they have to, otherwise they'll eat frogs if they come across them. But they're really clever and cunning at stealing from kills that have been made by much larger predators. And the other day, of course, we had that unbelievable sighting of the hyenas and the wild dogs fighting over a baby kudu. And the jackal, black-backed jackal, first one I've seen in this area, came charging in and stole a whole lot of meat. And the hyenas and dogs took almost no notice of him whatsoever. So they will occur in a pair. Now, we did see two of them, much unlike the side-striped, which often occurs solitary. That's so cool. All right, let's go back to Jamie. We're going to head up towards Cheetah Plains Pan before it gets too dark, and then we'll head back to Djuma. See you just now.
Perfect.
Still with these hyenas and watching their interaction, it's some absolutely incredible moments out here. You can hear the squealing of one of them begging for food. Madam happily obliging, there you go, the genital sniffing between the two individuals. Such a clear display of the different types of greeting ceremonies between spotted hyenas. And now, curious and coming to investigate. Hello. And Diane is watching on Twitter as we watch all of our different sets of babies come racing around. Excuse me, please don't try and chew that. I'm looking, sorry, distraction. I'm looking deep into these expressive, very cute brown eyes that are also full of mischief and are currently licking the side of, or thinking about licking the side of the car. Yes, I see you. I see you, little monsters. There's three of them all lined up on the edge of the car. I'll show you what I mean. Hold on 1 second. Let's try to do this. Oh, some of them have moved off. One of them's moved off. Oh, it's moved under the car. Hello. Yes, you. Yes, you. Okay. Show you exactly what I mean. There you go. Can you see there, Brian?
Yeah.
That is what I'm looking at when I keep looking over the side of the car. Look at that. You see what I mean? Look at that mischief. Look at that mischief. Up to no good. Somebody, though, has decided that dinner time is a little bit more important than time spent. Hey, I felt that. Don't you be chewing on the side of the car, sorry. Just checking up on what the mischiefs are getting up to. I sort of feel as though I felt or heard a nibble of teeth. This kind of interaction to me is one of the most wonderful things out here. And we don't really let the cubs touch the car, which is why I'm keeping an eye on what they're doing. That's not a habit that I want them to learn. Diane, I was in the middle of answering your question while we were watching the multitude of cubs that this clan has managed to produce. You were wondering, do they produce babies all year round? And the answer is yes, they do. They don't have any kind of set breeding season, although you'll usually find that there are a couple of sets of cubs. Ooh, careful now. Madam wasn't terribly happy to see you there. You're going to get yourself a serious nip on the bottom. But yes, you'll find that a couple of the females time their estrus cycles around a fairly similar time. And what that means for their cubs is, first of all, that there's a protection around the den of multiple mothers, multiple females. But that there's, hello, that there's also cousins for them to grow up and to play with. And the play that we witness, whilst absolutely adorable, is such an essential part of developing the skills and the strength that they will need as they go into adulthood. All of this play and exploration is of vital importance. And Diane, we've seen fresh sets of cubs in winter, summer, all occasions, standing on this female, having a good scratch. And hyena cubs really get away with so much. They, oh, whoopsie. Except for that one. That one came a little bit too close. They are protected and cosseted. They don't yet know much about their ranking, occasionally having to be taught the hard lessons. Oh, there's two there. I thought there was only one. It's amazing what that dip can actually hide. What you doing? Yes, you. I'm not so worried about the adult. The adults tend to stop this kind of habit. There's now a cub underneath the back wheel. We'll just keep an eye on them. For the most part, they tend not to be too naughty. Occasionally, they might try and grab an oil cap off the Land Rover tire, but not always. And what we'll see is that this hyena clan, as we go into the real height of this drought, we will see more and more of a population boom with the hyenas, as we will for all of the predators. Oh, put in its place, picked up and put down, but oh so gently. Might look like rough play, but when you think about what a hyena's jaws and teeth are capable of doing, and how much gentleness the adults display towards them when they play like this, you really get an idea of just how important the social and group dynamics really are. Now, Keith, as I try and... they're all right on top of me. Keith, you were wondering, with respect to Karula, you were wondering how close we are to where she is with her kill. The answer is we're actually very far away. We're basically on the opposite side of Juma. What are you doing? That's where the axis sits. No, you can't go into the axle. No, you can't. Yes, with your big expressive brown eyes. Keith, we're probably about in a straight line about 4 kilometers away from where Karula is, which is in miles roughly about 2.5. I don't know why my miles conversions have got so mixed up in my head, but yes, it's about 2.5 miles. It's quite far in terms of distance. We're on almost at the northern boundary of Juma. Karula's almost on the southern boundary of Juma, although in a sort of a very similar east-west line. Look how much fun these cubs are having. An incredibly exciting afternoon for all of us concerned. I'm trying to keep an eye on all sides of the vehicle, make sure that there's no hyena cubs chewing on the corners. Incredibly exciting afternoons. Our time on Cheetah Plains for the Sunset Safari is almost drawing to a close. So let's head back over to James and have one last look for today.
The sickle moon rises, in fact is now setting over Cheetah Plains, and as John Ray zooms out, look at the subtle green colour of the clouds as he pulls back. I think that's quite amazing. Green clouds look like bits of cream soda candy floss floating high in the mauve sky. What are you laughing at, Jean Ray? It's exactly what they look like.
Very apt description.
I think so. Then just quickly, everybody, off to the right-hand side. Let me get out of the way. There is Cheetah Plains Pan. Not much going on in Cheetah Plains Pan, I've no doubt. Over the coming months, however, we'll see many things having a drink from here. All right, so that was a little cameo of Cheetah Plains Pan. We'll head back to Jamie and her hyenas, and we're going to make our way back towards Juma now, and we'll see you over there. unless we find something astonishing before we arrive back there.
One last look at the hyenas before it gets dark. They are having such a wonderful game that I'm loath to disturb them. They've all come and set themselves right next to the vehicle. One thing we do not do is put lights on the hyena cubs around a den site. It just adds an extra layer of distraction in terms of the nighttime hours when there are big nocturnal predators wandering about. Oh, there's going to be tears. It amazes me how resilient these cubs are. That looked so sore. Those of you with puppies and kittens know exactly what those needle-like baby teeth are like. You can just imagine how that must have hurt. Well, I was going to leave the hyena den. It's very difficult to do when you've got hyena cubs all over the show. Hey! Hey! Oi! Did you just clock? You did just clock your head. That baby just clocked its head underneath the vehicle. I felt it. You felt that, Brian? Jink. You silly thing. Ouch. Shame. This level of interaction is very special, but the reason that we allow it to happen is because once they grow up, adult hyenas, and I've gone through so many different generations of hyena cubs, adult hyenas never carry through that kind of behavior into adulthood. You will never find Madam or Pretty or Corky coming up to the vehicle and having a sniff. It's a cub-like curiosity that they learn about people, and they learn about people in vehicles, but it never ever translates into anything more serious. So there's never been any incidents of hyenas coming in, for example, attempting to pull food away from a guest or bite a guest or anything like that. It's important to maintain that barrier with a wild animal in the vehicles, which is why we always talk about never letting elephants touch the car, for example. And with lions and leopards, they hardly ever cross that line. Hyenas are slightly different. They learn about the vehicle, but they never carry that behavior through into adulthood. I think we can make our escape. We're going to say goodbye to our hyenas. How are we doing back there, Brian? Have we got anybody we need to be concerned about? We good? Quickly, while they're all occupied. Elsewhere. I'm letting the engine run for a bit. And then we're going back. No, little one. You stay there. No, stop chasing me. So naughty. They have all got incredibly small, full bellies. They look, the matriarch being the one, of course, that will have had the most access to the food. I don't know what I'm talking about this afternoon. Karula's cubs have scrambled my brain. That doesn't make any sense at all. It's just because I looked across and saw my phone still sitting out from where I recorded them for you earlier. Right, should we try that whole sentence again? They're all looking very full. The matriarch would have had the best access to the food. What's your leg there, Brian? I don't know what they've been feeding on. They've obviously found something to keep them occupied over the last little while. Maybe it's still that elephant on Buffel's hook that they've been feeding on. Oh dear. One of the reasons why I absolutely love spotted hyenas is that their social system, everybody watch your heads, got it there, Brian? Awesome. Is because their social system is completely unique among all of the animals out here, all of the mammal species. There is none that exhibits the same social structure. In Virginia, in Kentucky, you were wondering if the brown hyena perhaps demonstrates this social matriarchal system. The answer, Virginia, is no. They don't. They live in little family units. They don't really live in clans. They themselves have got quite a fascinating structure, but it's very, very different to that of the spotted hyena. The females are not larger than the males, and they will generally mate for life. Their offspring will sometimes stick around for a generation or two to help them raise the next set of cubs, and then they go off on their separate ways. I've been very fortunate to have worked in places with high populations of brown hyenas, and they are also incredibly engaging and entertaining animals, but they're just that little bit different to spotted hyenas. And for those of you who are wondering, we do get spotted hyenas in this area, but they're very, very rare. And as far as I know, only one has ever been seen on a live safari, and that was with Peter Pretorius. It's not really the right kind of habitat for them. They like rocky cliffs where they can go and den. I did watch an amazing documentary, which also puts the story that it told also makes brown hyenas quite unique. And it was essentially a situation where a female and her mate had cubs, and the mate was killed in some way. I don't think they could establish exactly what had happened to him. It was just that he disappeared one night and never returned. Might have been lions, I can't remember exactly what it was. But he disappeared off, and she was left to raise the cubs on her own. And then a nomadic male came in, and usually as soon as you hear that part of the story, you think things like leopards and lions, where the males come in and kill the female's cubs in order to bring her back into estrus, rather than wasting time investing energy in raising a set of cubs that are not their own. Because of course the predominant biological drive for mammals is to pass on their genetic structure. But in this particular case, this nomadic male came in, sat a long way away from her, and slowly got closer and closer, eventually meeting up with her when she was away from the cubs, and obviously courting her, and then returned with her to the den where she was hiding her babies, and proceeded to assist her in raising them. Now, that to me was really, really interesting behavior. And it's one of those things that just goes to show Dacre. Let's not confuse another Dacre for a serval again. That was terribly embarrassing the first time. Let's not repeat it. But yes, it's one of those little stories that's a reminder of how animals don't ever read the textbooks, and they sometimes display behavior that nobody's ever seen before. It's never been recorded. Yes, brown hyena are a very different kettle of fish. Kettle of fish? What on earth is wrong with me? Stop for 1 second. That's not good. Let's go back a little bit, because you can actually see his fiery neck. You can see the fiery neck of a fiery-necked nightjar. And I'm not going to keep my light on him for too long, just because he will want to fly away. Nocturnal birds, there he goes. So like all nocturnal species, it is okay to shine a light on them. I prefer not to do it for any extended period of time with nightjars, so we just get a quick glimpse before they fly away. And I've been in the process of reading this extraordinary book on the subject of nightjars. An extraordinary book about the search for the Netchesar nightjar, a famous nightjar that was recorded as a separate species from one wing, found by a 1990 expedition of 4 Cambridge scientists who went across to Ethiopia and found a wing of a nightjar that had been driven over by a car. And they went and compared it to every single specimen, every single textbook. It was too large. The markings were not right for any of the recorded nightjar species. And they proceeded to approach various ornithological and biological societies to question whether or not it was possible to scientifically label and record a new species based on just one wing, having never seen a living individual, having only ever recorded that one wing. And it was a tremendous breakthrough in science that they were actually able to do that, following the sort of logic that if we can record different species of dinosaur from fossils, then we most definitely can record a different species of nightjar from one wing. And they have searched high and low for this particular new species. Nothing more has ever been found, none of them have ever been seen. I haven't finished the book, I don't know how it ends, although I'm pretty sure I've never heard of a sighting being recorded of that particular nightjar. And yet scientists for over 2 decades, nearly 3 decades, have been searching for it ever since. And that for me is something, that's the kind of story that absolutely captures my imagination. That's something like that. And it makes one wonder about how many, and we know there are, for every unrecorded mammal and bird species, there are hundreds more of different types of insects and thousands more species of bacteria that we just do not know about yet. And I think in a way I'm incredibly drawn to the constant sense of discovery that provides. And I suppose, in a way, that's what safaris are. It's a constant journey. The word safari means journey. It's part of a never-ending journey. As we head out into the night, one of my favorite times to be traversing and to be exploring, Tony was wondering what animal leads the most challenging life. Whew. That's a really difficult one. What animal leads the most challenging life? There's so many different types of challenges. There's so many different things. I mean, I look at Karula's little leopard cubs and how incredibly tiny and vulnerable they seem, and yet the way that they jump from tree to tree and bush to bush, the way that they climb, the agility that they're already showing. And I think about the poor impala every night that are on absolutely every predator's menu, every large predator's menu, and have to live in a constant state of alertness. But what animal, Tony, I don't know what I would answer in terms of what animal has the most challenging life. I can tell you in the next few months which animals I think are going to have the most challenging life, but that's a very limited time period. I'm talking for the drought itself, and that will be the hippopotamus, the buffalo, the bulk grazers of this area. They are going to be the ones that struggle the most. The browsers that eat the trees will have a little bit of a better time of it. The impala will probably be the most resilient of the herbivores, and then of course on the other end of the scale, the predators will have a good time of things. But that's just for a limited time period, Tony, and I know that that's not exactly what you meant. And I'm not sure if I had to... Everything has a hard life out here. There's nothing comes easy, or is ever... One thing animals don't ever do, I suppose, is take anything for granted. Just by the way, if you're wondering what my evening plans are, apart from just in general exploring the different, looking for the various nocturnal species, I'm heading across to where I last had those male leopard tracks, and I'm going to see if perhaps our leopard hasn't decided to pop up. There's some wonderful nocturnal creatures to be found, and it seems as though James has found quite a surprising one.
There, everyone, is a flap-necked chameleon, as Jamie says. Lots of fantastic nocturnal creatures around the place. This is the only one we've found so far, and we're on the Cheetah Plains driveway. So, excuse me everybody, I keep closing my jacket over my microphone, sorry about that. So there is the chameleon, actually in coral, so that's an coral chameleon. So it's quite illegal that we're looking at him. But we're on the Cheetah Plains driveway, so we're going to do it anyway, aren't we? Naughty Gendre. So naughty. Anyway, a small example of a flap-necked chameleon. I'm not going to go and fetch him off there because he is an Nkoro chameleon and he'll take great offense. Be waiting there. Well, he'll be asleep now. And many of you, of course, will ask how on earth we've managed to spot him. Now, Jean-André, if you zoom all the way out. Now, you can actually see him there, and he's changed. He's got a lot darker since we found him, and that's obviously what chameleons do. They can turn or change their color slightly to camouflage themselves, but he is very luminous in the night, so it's actually very easy to spot them when you're driving along with the spotlight. Let's leave that chap. So as you can see, darkness has fallen here on Cheetah Plains, as it has on Djuma. Unsurprisingly, they're not in a different time zone, pretty much the same time zone. And Mia, you want to know if there'll be any different nightlife here. Well, in terms of animals on the ground, I don't think so. I did see some civet tracks, but we see those all over Djuma. So, I mean, I don't know. I think time will tell, Mia, whether or not we have any kinds of different nightlife here. I suspect quite strongly that it will be almost exactly the same. Maybe in those clearings. I mean, jackals are largely nocturnal, so we've already seen 2 of them. And I mean, we will spend some time in those clearings as the night goes on, at least not this night, as the months go on. I mean, the chances of white-tailed mongoose, honey badgers, what else might we see? Well, we'll see various different things like in the clearings, but I mean, we can see all of those on Djuma anyway. We're now on the driveway, like I said, so to the left of your screen is Chitwa. There we go. Jean-André taking an illegal look in there. To the right of the screen, Nkoro. Jean-André taking an illegal look in there. And here you can see we're now exiting Cheetah Plains. And this is a historic moment, of course, our first game drive on Cheetah Plains. So let us play a small tribute to the Cheetah Plains sign. There you are, Jean-André. And it is pointing towards the exit. You can see the arrow there was drawn by a 3-year-old child, it looks like. That's unusual. But the... That's astounding. Hello, Shellbell. Shellbell, one of the creatures we can see at night, of course, would be owls. And you want to know what kind of owls we get in Africa? Well, I mean, Africa, of course, is a massive, massive place. So I don't know what kind of owls you get in Morocco or Libya or Tunisia, indeed Egypt, or even the Central African Republic. But down in South Africa, I can tell you that we get many. And here, in this particular area, we get the following. We get giant eagle owls, spotted eagle owls, white-faced scops owls, standard issue scops owls, pearl-spotted owls, barred owls, barn owls, grass owls, and those are all the owls that we get here, Shellbill. And once we are in a position where we aren't being approached by another vehicle, what I will do is actually show you a picture of those owls. So the ones we most commonly would hear here would be the pearl-spotted owl with its very distinctive call. What a pearl-spotted owl does, and it's actually one of the only sort of semi-diurnal owls we get here, so they're mainly found in the daytime. Then the scops owl, which is they're often heard deep in the night. They sit in the drainage line areas, and the giant eagle owl goes it's amazing cool. There's a screeching sound of the barn owl, and as you know, barn owls found all over the world. Very screeching sound that they make. Now, I'm not sure what a grass owl does. Ah, yeah. That'll be a staff member from Cheetah Plains. Let's turn all our lights back on. Shellbell, before we lose signal, we may well lose signal going through here. Let me just quickly show you some of those owls, simply because it's so much more meaningful if you've got sight of them. Here is my bird book. O for owl. Is that right, Chandra? Yes. 2, 3, 6. Yeah. There we go. Okay, so shellbell. None of these we found here except perhaps the African, oh sorry, we get two of them here. Both of these, the barn owl and the African grass owl, which actually look fairly similar to each other. They've got that very distinctive face mask. And that face mask, I think, helps to focus the sound because they do use their ears extensively to hunt. African wood owl has, I think, the most beautiful call. Don't really found it here. It's found more in the forests up around the Drakensberg Mountains. There's a marsh owl. We could see it here potentially. Then these are the most common ones we get here. African scops is a tiny little one there. Tiny little owl, probably about half a foot, 15 centimeters. Then a white-faced scops owl over there, pearl-spotted owl there, and the African bard. They're very small. And then a huge, huge, giant eagle owl there, Varro's eagle owl, 2 feet tall, 60 centimeters, and the spotted eagle owl over there, just smaller than that, about 1.5 feet. So those are all the owls, shellbill. And potentially, just potentially, you can see a Pell's fishing owl, and that is on the list of every serious ornithologist and birder around the world. The fish-catching Pell's fishing owl. Maybe sometimes, it has sometimes been seen on the Sand River to the south of us. Let's go across to Jamie and get an update from her before we go into the dip.
I'm very impressed with James, who managed to spot that chameleon. And the reason I am so impressed is, first of all, it's so cold. I didn't expect to see that many more chameleons. I would have expected most of them to be very much in hiding. But also because there are so many of these African vagrant butterflies sleeping on the leaves at the moment. I've counted about 10 of them. And they show up very much like chameleons show up when you first glimpse them. And I've been counting them as I go along. Look at how hidden that is on the tree. But when you practiced with spotlighting and when you're looking for something in specific on a tree, that is what catches your eye, catches your glance immediately. And for example, just sitting here now, I've mentioned that one. There is another one on the top of that tree. You see it there. Perfect. Thank you. Can you see that there? That little white shape? That's two. Just sitting on this particular patch in Zoe's Road. I'm very glad that James managed to spot a chameleon for you. They stand out in a very similar way. Let's count as we go along and as we use the spotlight to just illuminate our path ahead. I won't stop for each and every one of them, but I'll give you a vague idea of just how many we're seeing at the moment. There's been such an explosion of particularly these African migrant or vagrant moths, and their caterpillars as well. That jumping caterpillar there, though, that's is that one? I have to go back a little bit, Ryan. They're hiding, or is that a patch of bird dropping? It's a, yeah, no, that's not one. Okay, that doesn't count. This plan might actually backfire on me completely. But it will give you a vague idea of just what we're spotting and what we're looking for when we're using the spotlight. And you'll notice that it's my path with the spotlight is quite erratic. And it's just a process of thinking where you're going to have the best views and the best visual and trying to cover the same amount of ground at the same time. And James has always teased me for my spotlighting technique like this, with my arm up in the air. But I also feel as though it does give me an opportunity to see further afield if I have the ability to, if the bush is not too thick. It's a little bit thick at the moment to utilize that technique. And other than that, we're looking for, there's another one, but I won't stop for it, to utilize the technique of basically catching the reflection of an animal's eye shine. So they have a reflective layer known as the tapetum lucidum. That is a way of enhancing ambient light. But what that means is that when a spotlight is shone on them, it instantly reflects back in sort of differing levels of brightness. And for me, the nocturnal animals, the civets, the genus, the lions, the leopards, the hyenas, their eye shine is particularly bright. It's almost like the reflection of a cat's eye on a road, a reflective sticker or a hazard sign. It shows up incredibly clearly, whereas the eye shine of a herbivore or a diurnal animal, and we don't, as you know, we don't shine a spotlight on a diurnal animal for terribly long, just because what it does then is it takes away their ability to see all that well in the dark if you shine for too long at them. So whilst it doesn't act to permanently blind them, it will put them more at risk of predation. Obviously, we don't want to interfere in that way, so we don't do that. And we won't spotlight wild dogs as well, for example. Or cheetah. So much for my moth count. I now haven't seen one. And as we come to the end of what has probably been one of my most extraordinary sunset drives that I've had since I started working on WildEarth, Frankie tells me that this sighting of Karula was just as exciting this time round as it has been in the past. It's a pleasure, Frankie. It's an absolute pleasure. For me, it was a very, very special moment. I look forward to spending many, many more hours and days and weeks and months and years ahead with Karula and her offspring. It was so exciting, and I can't wait to get to know them as little individuals, personalities, what sex they are. Just seeing them today makes me feel incredibly fortunate and very comforted in the fact that she felt comfortable to call them out in our presence. But thank you all as well for joining with us and for enjoying that sighting alongside. It was 10 times more exciting knowing that you were all watching across the world and enjoying it. Big thank you to Brian for capturing a momentous moment just like that, as well as to Jerry and to Kirsty in final control, and of course to James and Jean-Andre on the other vehicle for their sterling explorations. They are pioneers in the field of Cheetah Plains. And thank you all for joining us. It's always wonderful to have your questions and your comments. I hope you enjoyed every moment of the Sunset Safari. We will catch up with you tomorrow for the Sunrise Safari. Have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are, between then and now, and we'll catch up with you tomorrow. Cheers.
Hello everybody. We've come back to Djuma now, and it was a wonderful time that we had there on Cheetah Plains. We're going to stop here for the last 2 minutes of our drive, and we have some sad news we've just received all the way from the States. One of our regular viewers, Matty, has unfortunately passed away, and that was on Thursday, and he was just 9. So that's very sad, and he loved scorpions very much, and he and Scott had a wonderful relationship. So Matty, wherever you are in the universe or the ether, I hope you're still watching us, and we wish your mother, Rebecca, and the rest of your family a really heartfelt and, well, our heartfelt condolences and nothing else we can say. I hope that you'll derive some peace from the African wilderness I hope that you'll continue to watch with us. So we're very sorry for that, and we will attempt to find a scorpion for Matty, and of course Scott was the genius at that, but I will attempt over the next few days, we all will, to find him a scorpion. So hang in there, Rebecca. All our very best to you and Matty's family. Whew. Right, that's going to be pretty much it from us for the day. Thank you very much on that somber note for joining us on Cheetah Plains. We did have a wonderful time also with Karula and her youngsters, and I mean, no better indicator of how life turns than there is here in the wilderness. Big thank you, Jean-Andre, to you today. Thank you very much. And Connor, the mobile tech crew. Big thanks to Final Control, and Jamie on the other vehicle, of course, being filmed by Brian. We'll see you tomorrow at 0600 during the breaking of the African dawn. And last shout out to you, Matty. Hang in there. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.